Good day and welcome to our live coverage of the public portion of the special staff meeting right here on MBS. Right now we are waiting for the members of the staff to arrive in the public voice channel. The private portion of the special staff meeting has been going on for about 2.5 hours at this point. The public portion was originally scheduled to begin at 7 p.m. GMT about 26 minutes ago. It has been pushed back due to the length of the private portion. What we expect to be discussed at this meeting is the logistics of Frumpel's return to the server. He originally left the server following the controversial events of Vulpicula's resignation in July, when he took an extended leave of absence and Chief, the head administrator, became in charge of day-to-day server operations. It has been indicated that Frumpel is ready to return to the server. That is what we expect this meeting to mostly be about. However, we have not received any public information on the agenda or anything like that, so we are more or less going to find out at the same time as you what is going to be discussed in the private portion, or in the public portion, if they announce anything from the private portion and anything like that. We'll be right here with live coverage throughout the entire meeting right here on MBS. You can also follow us at twitter.com/news_MBS for continuing live updates. And now we just await the staff to arrive. And for any viewers just joining us, we are still awaiting the arrival of the staff in this voice channel for the special staff meeting public portion to begin. Head admin Chief Bazex and Administrator CCC9 are set up at the podium. This is being held in GSM Town, but staff are still in their private channel discussing for the time being.
Yeet.
Back hurts.
And it would seem that the staff have now arrived, so the public portion should be beginning right now for viewers on MBS.
I need caffeine.
Yeah, Chief?
Hi.
Yeah, yeah, never mind. I'll figure it out.
Okay. Okay, as we're waiting for a couple additional staff members to join on this side, Hut and Dinty, you guys make sure that you move yourselves up. And Honest. Yeah, Mods, as you're joining, make sure that you you jump up on the stage, and then if you're in game, grab your seats. Yes, go ahead and publish that in the meeting agenda. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to okay. Members don't teleport to me. There's a bunch of folks who are there just because I'm kind of behind the little barricade. But like if you TP to Helkama, Conrek, Vicky, London, those are people I'm seeing in the front row. So if you want to join, go to them. All right, welcome everybody to the, okay, Vicky has TP auto on, so if you're looking to get to the meeting, you can TP to Vicky. All right, let's try this again.
Is meeting
and
live
then-
open? Sorry, just checking.
Let's fix that. Group member. Set.
There's agenda. Cool.
Channel
Oh, wait, we did.
true.
Why'd I put the same link?
So, okay, Minecraft side is open, and I will open the Discord side.
There we go. Someone please tell me if that's working for them.
Meeting is open and I see it.
Yeah, meeting is working. I was able to type in it.
Well, okay, you're a staff member. You're always able to type in it. Okay, Discord is open. Okay, great.
I
Is
didn't
agenda
realize
minutes
that.
working?
That's
Agenda
funny.
minutes working for people? I made sure link should be good, so just want someone to confirm we're good. Okay, we're seeing people join, so good.
Yes, they're good. Okay, cool. All right, hi everybody. Welcome to, for like the fourth attempt, welcome to the special staff meeting, October 24th, 2021. We've got a lot of folks here, and the staff have been having a private discussion for the last 2.5 hours on a few things that some of which will be repeated in the public, but a lot of which, well, they'll be related, but new discussions because now we're including all of you. I'm going to start with a very brief address, and then I will hand the controls of the meeting over to Frumple, and we'll kind of go from there. As I noted back when I announced and called this meeting, there's a couple things that we want to discuss. The most important, and I guess they're all kind of interrelated to one another. One of the biggest ones that everyone's going to be seeing is that Frumple has indicated that he is ready to return to managing the community aspect of the server. And so this meeting is partially because I know that a lot of folks have had concerns and other things with when the transition would happen. So I called this meeting to ensure that we're able to discuss that transition and ensure that as Frumple returns to the original post and community management, that that doing so is done in a way that continues to keep the community all nice and healthy. So that is the primary thing of what we've discussed. So effective today, Frumple will be returning back to the server in the capacity that he was in back in July. I will say that there is a portion of today's meeting that we will get into as those of you who are looking at let me actually open that. That those of you who are looking at the agenda know that section 1 is one of those titles that looks a little bit scary. And I have to tell you that when I announced back in July that I was taking over, I said that there were 2 announcements that I may have to make in my position that I would make if I needed to, but that scared the living hell out of me. One of them I made back in July, which was that I needed to take over control. And I have to say that today we have to make the other. So we're going to get into the details, and there's a little bit more of explaining. It's not something that is going to be imminently a thing to worry about. So hold your horses as much as you can. We're going to get into it. And I'll
Should I take the wheel?
yeah, I was going to say, I'll let Frumple get into this, but just know that the thing that we're about to talk about, please understand, is not a decision that I or Frumple arrived at lightly. So I'm sorry for kind of working everybody up at the beginning of the meeting, but please know that this is something that I've thought a lot about. So,
Chief, I think you're the
with
worst
that,
hype man, but anyway.
I'm sorry. I'm bad at this kind of thing. So, all right, with that, I'm going to let Frumple take over the meeting from here.
Okay.
Actually, sorry. One more thing.
Sure.
I just also want to say, the last 3 months have been an absolute honor to serve as the top post on the community. It has been certainly not without its challenges, and it has certainly been a lot of work to handle everything that I have. Please know that even though I am no longer the top position here, and never was in an official context, please know that I will still be a resource for all of you, and that as as things continue to happen here, please know that my DMs will remain open, and that I am more than happy to be an ear and continue to voice concerns forward. But I do want to say thank you for trusting me for the last few months to keep the wheels on and to try and keep things moving in a reasonably okay direction. I think we've come a long way as a community in the last 9 years, just in what we've done, and I certainly have felt honored to be a part of it. And so, thank you to all of you guys for putting your trust in me. Thank you to Frumple for trusting me to run this place for the last few months. I hope that I've taken good care of the place, and that handing it back is something that will allow us to continue to do stuff together for the foreseeable future. So with that, Frumple, I will let you take it from here.
Okay. Chief, I'm going to have to refer back to you at some point while I'm doing this announcement, so just be prepared for that.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, so I'd like to also thank Chief for taking over in such short notice when I left. The thing is, Chief and I have always been prepared for the possibility that I could just be incapacitated or hit by a bus. I wasn't prepared for this situation, so I did have to ask Chief on very short notice, and I'm very thankful that he was able to take the reins, so to speak, and just guide the community for these past few months. I'm going to go straight into the announcement. So basically, Chief, in August, about a month after I left, Chief and I had a discussion of what we thought what the future of the server would be. Actually, I'll refer back. Chief, would you explain your position, like your current situation, just for the context? Yeah.
No, we've already done that. So that should
He
be.
said that
I guess
it didn't
Oh
work.
no, it didn't work.
I did the
Stacey, you
wrong
did the
one, I
wrong one.
think. I know. That's what
Oops.
I'm trying to. I'm checking. I was like, I think I did the wrong one again.
Okay. Oops. Anyway, while Stacey's dealing with that, yeah. So for those who don't know, I for the last 2 years since graduating from since I think it's essentials.kick.exempt. So for the last couple of years since graduating from college, I've been working full time as doing software development, and work and a series of random events that got started in July has resulted in me having very little free time outside of work. And also just the general stage in life of where I'm at. There's a lot of just kind of big transitions that I expect to be happening in the next several months and years. So oh god. So I mean, I think I've mentioned to several of you guys, but I'm currently in the process of closing on a house, and like that's been chaos of getting everything worked out, and all of that. So I don't really have a whole lot of free time to be on here, and I think a lot of you guys have noticed that my activity since the summer has decreased significantly. So just the free time is a bit of an issue. There's also the question of, in case of a long-term issue where I needed to take over the server, really the way that Frumple and I had set everything up for me as head admin was that I could take over for a short period of time, which I feel like I've done reasonably well. But longer term, for a number of reasons, including my free time, including just for some other reasons that I don't want to get into here, I don't feel like I can take over full ownership of the server for longer than really about what I've done, or possibly a little bit more. But really going any further past what we've done so far is a big ask, and I am not in a position that I could do so. There's also, just for context, Frumple's Canadian, and the server is legally registered as a corporation in Canada, and I'm American, and those are not the same country. And so any kind of bigger change of ownership that goes trans-border is a pain. So no, London, Canada and America, like income taxes, there's some stuff that makes it a little easier, but it's a whole, the process is just legally complicated.
To follow up on that, so just to make it very clear if people don't get it, Chief is not in a position to take over ownership of the server on a long-term basis. He was able to do it for the short term, just for this period, but for long term, no, like that's not going to happen. On top of that, just as Chief mentioned, there's a lot of tax and legal implications for if I were to transfer the MRT as a company, as an entity, to someone else. There's a lot of hurdles around it, especially cross-border. And I'm not willing to deal with all that bullshit. I don't think Chief wants to deal with that bullshit. So
expensive and
time
a pain.
Time consuming, and just like
sorting out legal liability is a mess. Yikes.
Yeah. In addition, in terms of the other admins on the server, I think there was some discussion of whether we could transfer to them. But quite frankly, all of them are super busy as well. And they're also not in a position to take over. So that effectively leaves only myself as the option as the owner of the server. It is my server. So that's that. And also, I'm going to announce the next part of this announcement. Basically, so as I promised in near the anniversary, I did promise that I would renew the server for 2022. I do currently, at this time, I do currently intend to renew the server for the year 2022. That is confirmed. It is also my intention at this time, and this is the new part, that renewal in 2022 will be the final one for this server. That effectively means that the most likely plan right now is that the server will shut down toward the end of 2022, probably like January 2023. I won't get into reasoning for that right now, but I won't get into reasoning too much, but I think to really summarize it is I'm pretty much done. Especially with the bullshit that's happened for the last probably this year or so, like I'm no longer enjoying, dealing with the server. And I did discuss this with staff during the private portion. Like I did ask, like, I tried second guessing myself. Like, am I making the right decision? Is this the right thing to do? To be really honest, a lot of staff are on the same page. They think that this is probably the best decision. Like, if I'm not enjoying myself here, there's no reason why I should keep running this place. So if you guys have more questions about this, I will be willing to answer them. Sorry. There's one other thing I forgot to answer as well. There's a lot of people will have also just to be clear, this shutdown refers to all MRT services. So the Minecraft server website, all that, the file server, all that sort of stuff. There will be some sort of download just before a final world download just before the server shuts down. So that will be made available. So people will have access to that. However, I also have to say that the Discord server, previously we said that we could keep the Discord server running. However, based on what I discussed with staff, we don't really want to moderate that even after the Minecraft server is gone. So in that sense, I think it would be best to shut down the Discord server as well. We're not entirely sure how that'll look like. Maybe the Discord server will remain a few months after the Minecraft server shut down, just so people can maintain contacts and stuff like that. Or it might go into read-only mode. But quite frankly, yeah, that is the situation. Again, just to be very clear, this is the current intention. This is the most likely plan that we have so far. It's very possible I could change my mind maybe later. But quite frankly, after thinking about, after trying to think of reasons how I would change my mind, there aren't really that many good reasons to do so, as far as I can tell. But this can be discussed. This can be debated, and all that. So that's that.
So as you guys can tell, this is what I was terrified of. I mean, this is not a decision that we took lightly. This is, Frumple and I started talking about even the possibility that this was going to be our direction. We started talking about this several months ago, and we've been just kind of sleeping on it and thinking of, like, is this really the best decision? The admins have known for a while. The staff found out a couple weeks ago. And I think that just as we've continued to think about it, this is really a decision that we feel like is the best one for where we all are at. And it sucks. I gotta be honest. This is one of the hardest things that we've had to decide, because I know that for me personally and for a lot of you, that this is a special place, and we want to honor that in our final year. So just know that we don't want to make any rash decisions. We're going to over the next several months, we will get a more detailed wind down plan in place. As Frumple said, the timeline that we're looking at is end of 2022 or January of 2023, which is a year plus from now. We will promise that there will be a final world download, and that basically all sorts or any official services would be closing alongside it. Discord TBD, Wiki, Wiki would close as well. There's pretty much all of that. So again, know that for the immediate term, the only thing it changes is that Frumple is taking over the ownership, and everything else we will announce in due course. So I would say, and again, this is the current plan, and it may change, but this is where we are thinking right now.
Okay. I guess, I don't know, Chief or others said, or I don't know if people, do you guys want to take questions regarding just this announcement for now? Or do you want to wait till later? I feel like we should do it just regarding this announcement. If there are any questions, we should take those now before we move on.
Given the magnitude of this, I'd allow questions now.
Okay. So if you have any questions, how do we do this? It's in a while.
The easiest way to, I think the easiest way to do it is if you either, let me actually open that tab.
Or what?
Yeah, so if you want to speak, You can use the request to speak button down at the bottom. I will try to get to you in the order that you list. If you don't want to speak, post your question in the meeting live channel and ping me. And then we will answer it just in the order that we have. Everything as close to the order that we receive it as we can. So I see Otto. You should now have an invite for it.
Okay. First question. I'll ask one question. I might come back for more questions later because I do have a few that I don't want to.
You're the only one in the queue right now, so.
Wipeout did, I think.
Wipeout sent a question in the text channel, but.
All right. So first question would be: will if the server would close and the roll download will be made available, will that roll download also include specifically the warp files and the map files that are associated with the server? It would require some work for people to set that up for it all to work again, but that would allow people to also use the actual stuff that's on the server in the way that currently is used if the server would close.
If I recall correctly,
Maps?
the maps are already included
yes.
in the downloads. The warp would be I might be able to add those if it is just a database file. So
yeah, it depends a little bit on how our plugins store it, and how easy it is to extract that.
I can confirm it's literally just a single file that has all the warp stored in it for this plugin. I've worked with this plugin before, so.
Okay. Yeah. So then, in that case, if it's easy to just include the file in the download, then we can do that.
I guess I'll just get this out of the way. Also, like, technically, the terms of use of the download is that it is okay for use on single player worlds, but when it comes to if you want to set up your own multiplayer server, it does require permission. I have given permission to people wanting to just experiment with the world or just make it for their own friends and stuff like that. But what I probably won't give permission for is if someone were to like make a Emerson or something like that, or a continuation, because I think it'd be just better just to leave that alone. So.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Anything else while we've got you?
Oh, that.
I mean, I figure it'll be easier just like while you've got the floor, just rattle them off.
Well, you'll come back in the next section anyway, Otto. So
for wiki, if the wiki is going to be closing, the wiki contains a lot of information regarding to how people will be able to explore and use the world, etc. Will a download of the wiki pages be included as well? That would be a very big download, by the way. But
it is a very big download. There are a lot of people have uploaded images, so many images that it kind of rivals the actual Minecraft in-game files. I'm not sure how I'm going to pull that off. That's a bit. I'll just say that's an unknown right now. I don't know if it's possible or easy to do. Yeah, that's all I can say about that.
I do know that that like the Wayback Machine and other crawlers have indexed various parts of the wiki. That's not something that I would rely on, but it is something that does exist for a partial archive. So TBD on.
There's probably some media wiki things that can be enabled, but I'm not sure exactly what thing you have to hit to do that.
Well, and I know that, like, just based on what people are saying, so if we wanted to say strip down the wiki to only the current version of everything, for what people are saying, yeah, it's pretty cheap to host that on the internet. The problem, at least from an official capacity, is there's still a bit of a like that still requires maintenance and liability and all sorts of other stuff. And in terms of closure, in an official context, I don't think we want to maintain a live copy of stuff in an official capacity.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So,
Probably the
but
biggest,
TBD.
probably the biggest question of the three then. This has actually been a discussion that I've seen multiple groups of members have. What would happen if a group of members would want to stand up and say, is there a way for us to take over the server, like in its entirety?
The problem with that, again, as I said, is transferring the server would require a lot of legal and tax implications, which I'm not really willing to deal with. It would essentially require me to hire a lawyer, which would be, in terms of expense, way more than even just paying for the yearly cost of the server. Like as I said, I could change my mind. Like I don't want to try to manipulate people here, and we'll get into the reasons why I'm deciding to shut down the server. But that is an option. That would be maybe an easier option, perhaps. But setting all this other stuff up and trying to decentralize the MRT and all that sort of stuff, that sounds like a mess. It's going to end up splitting the community anyway. So,
and I would say, with a lot of stuff, there is a lot of if you guys were to start something on your own with a new map and everything, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. I would say hold on doing anything for now, because y'all still have a year. We're gonna, the 10th anniversary is gonna be a big party, I hope. So hold your horses on that. But the cleanest transaction legally is if someone was to start something completely from scratch.
And that would be, I'll get into that. If you do that, then you can set up the world however you want. You don't have any, you're not tied to whatever MRT world map or anything or any previous things.
I would be willing to provide advice for someone with that, like how we have set up plugins. If you want to try and keep it similar to how we have it set up, I'd be willing to provide advice in that way. But that's about as far as I'd be willing to go at this point.
That does raise an interesting additional question, because you said earlier that you would not be allowing someone to use the MRT world to basically continue the server, but just as a hypothetical, wouldn't that be the easiest way to, rather than having the whole server be transferred, having the necessary files that are not legally complicated, plugins, world, wiki files, to have that be available to someone who would just separately set up a new company to take it over?
Because technically the map it's my property.
Map is,
of course, it's your property. I'm just saying hypothetical for if we'd arrive at another discussion about taking over, continuance, or whatever, wouldn't that solve most of the problem that on the legal end? It would, of course, give a bigger workload for whoever or whatever group of people would take it over in that hypothetical.
It's going to cost $5,000. It's going to cost like $5,000 to do it legally.
Yeah, because
that's the point.
law.
Yeah, so it's not worth it.
Even then, I wouldn't feel comfortable giving the map away. It just feels like what I'm trying to say is, if we're going to end the MRT, let's just end it with a bang. Let's give it the send off it deserves. It's the end of the line in a way. I don't want it to sort of continue. I don't want to continue the map, sort of a half-assed way, or let someone else make it in a half-assed way, right? So, yeah.
The IP behind the map and wiki. I mean, the wiki's Creative Commons, so it's fine. And the plugins, they're we just pulled them straight off of Spigot using those appropriate licenses, so that's fine. But the map, again, just transferring ownership internationally is going to be expensive and not worth it. So we're fine licensing it to you guys to use for personal use, but any reuse on a server, that just gets too hairy too fast, and we're not gonna allow that.
And well, I'll be realistic here. If someone were to do that, I probably wouldn't go pursue it, because that would mean I would have I'd be sending basically spending money to try to get that. That's not worth my time. I don't want to do that. Like that also costs money. So I'm just saying I would prefer that no one tries to set up another server with that map. Honestly, I think it's more exciting for people to just start a new map, because again, you're going to get all the new,
118.
118 shit. So
Taller world.
Well, that's true. I think the reason why someone might want to continue the map that's currently here is I don't know how I phrase this the best.
Let me take a guess, Otto. I understand that people have built a lot of things, like they've built cities, they've built systems on the map. They want to keep those. You do, before the server shuts down, you do have options to take those away. You have schematics, you have the world downloads. So you do have those options.
Of course, but there is also the aspect of how everything with roads, transport companies, events, city areas, shared buildings, shared property, the way everything ties together, and the way that also impacts the way this community keeps together is very big. Much bigger than it probably was in the old world from back in the day. And that will make a transition to a new map probably a lot harder nowadays than it would have been back then.
Well,
that is something that I was keeping in mind when asking those questions, because of course it's possible to just start a new server with a new world with the same concept.
I'm going to be very serious here. Setting up there are plenty of other people who've tried setting up Minecraft communities or any other community. I want to make it I hope people realize it's very difficult to do so. Quite frankly, when I started the MRT in 2012, I was not expecting to run the server probably more than a week or a month. Like I was like, oh, lol, I have a YouTube channel. I'm going to try setting up a server. Let's see what happens. Oh, fuck, everyone's joining.
You set up the server as a proof of concept. 6 months later, we were still there.
Yeah, and you're attached
and
to
we
my
never
leg.
left.
I couldn't get rid of you. So
yeah, I showed up, and yeah, no.
This is an unhealthy relationship.
But
and we never left.
Otto, what you just said is actually more true than you think, because I honestly, like, this server does not have to exist. Like, it didn't have to. Like, the fact that it is existing is just a pure chance of. I'll tell you this, honestly, luck. Like, it was just the right time, right moment, and it just had the proper momentum, proper inertia to keep going. But quite frankly, I'm a lot of my decision of why I'm shutting it down is I feel like a lot of people have taken this place for granted, to the point where I just simply don't enjoy. Like, I have to ask myself, why am I running the server? Right. So if people would think about that more, maybe we wouldn't have gotten in this situation, but this is where we're at. So.
Any other questions that you have while you're here? Otherwise,
I think we should probably move on. We have lots of.
Yeah, I would like to get to others. There is a line building.
Yeah,
sure.
All right. Go ahead. We'll still ask.
Right, more questions.
So.
Okay. All right. Let's deal with the bunch. Thank you, Otto. Let's address the bunch that have come in the meeting live channel here. If I can find the ones that have my pings.
There's also a queue of people who requested to speak.
Yep, I see that. We'll get to them. I'm just going to deal with these just because they're quick. Wipeout asks, will staff meetings continue as normal until the planned shutdown? Yes, that is a part of the winding down plan. Essentially, I would imagine that up until about 1 month to go, that we will continue staff meetings, because y'all keep building stuff and we need to keep approving it. So that is fine. The one exception is moderator nominations will permanently close several months before everything else.
Yeah,
but
we don't have a set date for those.
Yeah.
We'll set that up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, this will all of the logistical pieces and timelines and everything, those will all be announced well in advance of anything starting to happen. But the short answer to your question, Wipeout, is yes. Pretzel is forwarding a question from London asking, will you be allowed to use the world downloader so you can work on stuff? Yes. You will be able to build your, download bits and bobs to work on in single player. That is absolutely fine. And we will provide a final download, as close to closure date as we can. And we'll leave that. Yeah.
Just to be clear, there is a scheduled there is going to be a next download probably coming end of February, early March. Just like it's gets a 1 year mark. So there'll be that download and then the final download. So just to make that clear.
Yep. So, but absolutely, you guys, what you've built here is your property that you can absolutely download a copy of what you've built and keep working on it in single player or put it on another server or whatever you want to do of the stuff that you have built.
I'll just answer a few questions here. Aquas asks, will you continue accepting member applications? Yes, those will still continue to be open. Those will close probably a month. It'll close at some point, but probably way closer towards the end there. Because I don't want people just joining and say, haha, we're closing. Bye. Like that's
that's also included. Yeah, that's also included as a part of it.
Also, some people are saying that you should just give me money. I would rather you not. Like that's not the point. That's not the problem.
Finances are not playing into this decision.
Yeah, honestly, the way I've been able to pay for the server, it's probably one of our lowest rates. Like I'm paying pretty much less than $2 Canadian a day to run the server. It's really not that much. Like at least for me, it's not that much. My main concern again is everything else, like the effort, the emotional impact, all this sort of bullshit that I've had to deal with in the past year. That's the problem.
And I'll just make it clear that finances are also not a consideration of why I am not able to take it over.
Nor I.
Yeah, like if I needed to, from a finance perspective, that would be okay. But it is just the emotional load and the liability and everything that I would have to consider, and just being able to invest the time. So it's everything else. I mean, y'all are still like supporter contributions still open, but like it's not an expectation by any means.
And quite frankly, I've heard some rumors of some people putting in like 1,000, like humongo, like gigantic donations. If I see that sort of stuff, I'd probably just refuse and refund it because that's way too much. I think that's like
that's not why that's there.
Yeah.
Okay. Noah asks, if we download our towns, could we add them in as schematics to other servers as a counter server only entity? No, the stuff that you have built, you own. And so you are free to extract those from schematics and world downloads and use them in single player or other servers as you see fit. And if you're going to import them to other servers, then as long as it's allowed under those policies, then we have no issues with you taking stuff that you have built. Now, if you're taking stuff that others have built, then you're going to have to include them.
For example.
Yeah, franchises are an issue. But if you've got like a train design or a plane design that you built, or a building that you built completely by yourself, absolutely nothing stopping you, and you're fully encouraged to save a copy for yourself. Because y'all put in a lot of work into some of the stuff that you've made.
Jimena asked, what about our donation? You are still free to donate. Like that's not closing. I'm just saying that that's not the priority here. Like that's not what
that's not what's going to sway our opinion.
Yeah, even if someone were to pay for a whole server, I'm still shutting it down. Like, yeah.
It's more about the emotional. It's more about the emotional and mental costs rather than financial costs.
Yes, right now it's just a healthy relationship for everyone involved.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's not with just me. It's all I've talked to several other staff members. A lot of them, I've gotten the impression that they're kind of fed up too. So it's not just me; it's several staff members as well.
Next question from Bro1Bro2. So Minecraft servers that collect money that aren't an official company are hosting the server illegally? No, that's not how it works. It's registered. Frumble can explain a little bit more if this doesn't suffice, but it's registered as a company for liability and tax reasons, and it makes the legal structure a lot simpler. You as an individual can certainly operate a Minecraft server, but just know that any legal and financial issues, those are going to fall on you as a person. This is why limited liability companies exist. And it is to allow people to have a way to protect themselves and potentially get business write-offs. So it's not a legal requirement, but we just have it set up this way for a couple of benefits that we get out of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can. I honestly, all I did was I just need to register a company just to do the taxes.
And then sign a couple pieces of paper with yourself that transfer the assets. Yeah.
And I get a business number that I put in my tax form. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Noah, I answered your question. Okay, _11 asks, currently there's a bunch of stuff that Frumple has open sourced for the MRT. Would we just be able to push all the configs to GitHub? I will let Frumple decide if he's going to publish things to GitHub.
Unfortunately, the configs, especially for some plugins, they can actually contain player data. Sometimes that's IPs even. So I have to be very careful about what I'm pushing there. Again, that's an unknown. I don't know if that's possible, or if it's worth the time to do. But whatever's there right now is open source. That probably will stay. So, yeah. Oh, and also _, thanks for your comment. Can I actually have a question for you, _? Could you let the Wolfhaven admins know, since you are on that team, of the decision? Because it's probably worth them knowing.
Oh, well, we have the red phone too.
We have the red phone, but we have a representative here. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, we'll post on the red phone too. But
yeah.
Okay, OB, importing your own city into multiplayer, is that okay? We've answered that. Modern, importing my city in multiplayer, and only my city is allowed, right? I think we've answered that. Okay, I think we're caught up on text questions. Nope. Okay, OB, would you say that ModGate kicked off this process, or do you think that was happening before then? That's really hard to answer. I know that last October was a big deal for a lot of us, and certainly I think caused us to pay a lot more attention to some of the bigger social things that are harder to put your finger on, so to speak. But I think it's really hard to determine a causal thing or a single incident that's broken any individual here. I think it's the total weight of everything, for me at least.
For me, considering that I have threatened to shut down the server for years, way before October 2020 or 2020, I think it's definitely more than that. There's been a lot of shit that's happened over the past year, but I would say definitely the most direct stuff has been in the last, say, 6 to 9 months. That has really pushed me to put it really bluntly, not give a damn. I am just done with this. So,
Noah, would this generational shift be a factor into the emotional issues? Possibly. Again, that's one that's harder to put your finger on.
I'm gonna probably answer that one, Noah, later on. I have some opinions regarding quote unquote maturity on the server, and that might come out in perhaps the next section or maybe the community exercise. Yeah.
Okay. Bro1Bro2, is there any way to take a snapshot of the dime map with all its functionality? Really, you have to render everything in the plugin in order for it to work with the interactivity. So you
could download the dime map files technically.
Yeah, or you could download the world files and run a copy of dime map yourself.
But that's a huge. Actually,
it's going to require 250 gig of disk space.
Yeah.
And a lot of time for your computer to churn out the files. Okay, Starcube has a question specifically for Frumple, and then I think we're caught up, and I'm going to switch to the people who are in line. to speak.
Okay,
if-
I'll answer. Sorry.
Yeah, Starcave's question: do you think this should have been done years ago?
Not really. I don't. I'll just say that I think it's a miracle that we've gone this long, honestly. So it's honestly that like of all the stuff all that stuff we've all dealt with, like yeah.
All right, we are caught up on the text questions. So the queue right now is Sands, then Power Miner, then London. So Sands, you should now have the invite. If you just accept that, then you'll be able to speak. And then I think we'll just work our way through all three of these.
Shimada, we'll give info when the downloads are ready. Like we'll give info for it.
Yeah. Again, we just wanted to give you guys the big news now so that you're not completely scared and taken by surprise when it does happen and when we have dates.
Oh, there we go.
Right now,
All right.
Yeah. Ludus, we have no idea. We're gonna kind of let stuff settle, and we're gonna kind of probably start planning for it. Honestly, not until next spring. We've got a lot of time now, unless there's some reason that we need to accelerate that. But we're probably gonna wait until next spring before we even start planning the details.
If there's any more further drama, I might decide just to shut it down earlier. So that is out there. Anyway, hello, Sans.
All right. Good afternoon. My question: do you guys have like a timeline for this? Like, how's the server gonna look in the months leading up to its shutdown?
We just answered that.
Oh, the same thing, or
yeah, pretty much. We don't have. All we know is roughly like at some point mod noms will stop. We'll stop accepting them. At some point, member apps will stop accepting. We don't have specific times for that.
All right.
In terms of, if you're asking more generally, like how the server will look like, we have no idea. Honestly, when we made the decision, there could be just to give you some extremes. We thought of it like there are definitely two of them. The one extreme, and this is more, I'd say, inspired from when I was talking with Gods about this in the whole 6 month heads up sort of thing, is since people know that when the server is going to shut down, they might appreciate it more, and so that they're just going to use that time to celebrate, the server in its 10-year history, and maybe things will get better in that sense. The other extreme is people will not react very well, descend into anarchy, and think that since I don't give a damn, they don't have to give a damn, and it'll be total chaos. So probably the answer is somewhere in between one of those things. I don't know. So
my ideal situation to answer the question of what is it going to look like is ideally nothing visibly is going to change until about a month to go, other than possibly around the anniversary a lot more celebration, or a lot more events planned to really kind of celebrate what we've done. From an operations standpoint, I think the only major visible changeover point would happen at about 1 to 2 months before the final closure date. But up until then, from an operations perspective, nothing should change in a major way.
All right.
Does that
thanks.
answer your question? Okay, cool. I'll just sneak this one in. Alpha asks, will the server still receive version updates or will it remain 1.6? So I have 1.17. The plugins are pretty much ready to go. So my plan is to set up beta server probably tomorrow, honestly. Though I think, I forgot to talk to staff about this. Command blocks are still not enabled. And I don't think they've been tested. CC, did you have a chance to look at that at all? Or
No, I haven't.
Okay. I think that needs to happen before I start doing the 1.17 stuff. So I would ask, well, I'll figure out with staff, but I think, cause I don't know how to test the command blocks too well. So if I could get some help on that, that'd be appreciated. But yeah, we will update to 1.17. We'll probably also update to 1.18. Regarding the 1.19 that's coming up sometime next year, I don't know when that's coming out. Depending on when it does, we may or may not.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But 117 for sure we want to do, especially because now paper is basically essentially saying that active development work has shifted to 117 in full, and so we'll be.
We need to get off
putting our-
once. Yeah.
116 we need to update. So it's on our near-term plans. Yes. Power Miner, you are on stage. Go ahead.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. I have a new headset, so this is not really a question, rather than just a remark or a comment. I think I'm not the only one who took this news quite heavily. It's emotionally quite a lot harder than I thought it would be. Now that we know that this community might not exist within a year going forward. And I would really just like to, at least on behalf of myself, extend a thank you for keeping the lights on during these trying times of the pandemic. At least I, so probably a lot more people too, have spent a lot more time on the MRT. And had it as a window to the only way to really socialize. And yeah, the only comment I really have is like, I'm really happy to have been part of this community for at least since I joined in 2015. And so thank you to everyone that's been holding this up and creating this community. It's been continues to be a great experience to always come back whenever I can. That was really just that.
Okay. Thanks for your comment.
London, you should now have. There you
go. Okay, can you hear me then? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
We gotcha.
Okay, I've got 2 questions. One of which is going to be obviously probably something you probably answered already. Senator and governor rank ups. What's going to happen about them? Because
they will still continue, probably toward the end, honestly. So if people want to do last minute senator, governor, premier things, it's probably until the very last staff meeting, I would say.
Yeah. We're probably going to freeze ranks about a month before we close.
Right. So. Okay. I just thought I'd clarify because I don't know.
Senator, all city rank promotion processes, those will continue.
Right. Okay. And another question as well. What in terms of ISMs and GSMs, what's going to happen to them regarding like the final months of the server before closure?
We don't know because we don't know the final date exactly.
Basically, Crumple and I and the admins will figure out where we want that to be, and then kind of work backwards. But again, staff meetings, those will continue on their regular cycle until, again, about a month out, and we'll announce what the final one is. I would imagine that at all general meetings for about 3 to 6 months before, that we will provide updates on and reminders on deadlines and changes in operations as they become relevant. But I would say, again, that this goes back to my previous comment of, until about 1 to 2 months before final closure, expect that literally everything we want it to be running as smoothly and similar as possible to today as we can. So those will continue.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Yep.
Just thought I'd ask.
Couple more.
Sorry, HVT, did you just change your Discord icon? I'm just noticing that.
Couple more questions coming in. Noah, when is final closure date? Not decided. Bro 1, Bro 2, could the community take over the Discord by removing the Discord? It will greatly separate the community. Also, is there an estimate on how big the final download will be? So right now, the world files are like 90 to 100 gig uncompressed.
Yeah.
I know I've downloaded a copy myself to generate some stuff before. So they're big, and this is going to be the complete package of everything. So I would assume that you're going to need about 100 gig if you're just downloading the world, and then if you add DIMAP on top of that, then that's a lot more. Could the community take over the Discord? Here's the problem: is that because we're such a big group, even when you consider the people who are not super active, it needs leadership structure and moderation in order to kind of keep the discussion, safe and in a place where that makes sense.
Yeah.
And staff,
The specific thing is, if I were to transfer, every Discord server has a single owner, so I'd have to transfer to someone, another person. I have no idea who that would be, and even then, I don't think it'd be appropriate because that Discord server is using technically my branding, the company branding. I think it'd be just easier for people to just create their own Discord servers, to be really honest.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do recognize that the Discord is a huge way for people to be in contact with one another. So again, specifics haven't been determined yet, but I do know that one of the most important things in that plan is that we at least leave it read-only for a considerable amount of time after closure to allow people to...
You heard it here, folks. Wolfhaven's going to take over the MOT.
No, but to allow people to
Oh,
exchange contact info and build those groups and make sure that there's an off-site way to continue those relationships.
Well, I knew a military takeover. I knew this would happen eventually.
Oh no!
We surrender. Whatever.
Okay. So, but just know that, like, if you guys want to set some Discord servers up, there's nothing stopping you from doing so. Just know that from an official capacity, when we close, we will stop verifying membership and supporting stuff from our side. So it'll be entirely on you if you want to do that. Looking at, okay. Chamada, a question for Frumple. Do you think you will make videos about the MRT as we approach closure date?
Nope, my YouTube channel is pretty much dead, and I have no interest in making any videos. Sorry.
That is our backlog cleared. There's no one else in line to speak, and I don't see any other questions coming in the channel. So I guess we'll just give a quick second in case there are any other last minute question. Narnia, no, there's a lot of private stuff in there. I'm gonna make a decision and say that's not happening.
That's what I figured. I mean, I guess I was more so thinking other things that aren't necessarily public at this point.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if it's not already public, it's not getting published.
Okay, I was just thinking of like staff news or anything like that, but yeah.
No, that's yeah.
No, I think that if we're going to release anything, we need to release the very early stuff where staff were graffitiing the end of the agenda. That's fun.
Yeah.
85% of that was Yoshi.
Blame Yoshi then.
Anyway, Foot Chicken pinged me through Stay Noah. New admins are still a possibility between now and then. We will stop doing mod nominations for sure a few months out. Admins are always a special case, and they're kind of promoted ad hoc. We're not really looking for specific stuff. Mike 24 dude. So my preference right now is that the Discord stays open, but in read only for a few months after. I can't say for sure what it's going to look like because we haven't decided, but having some kind of transition after for the Discord server, that is part of the plan, is ensuring that Discord, that there is an off-ramp, so to speak. Okay. Anything else before we proceed on to the next item? Seeing some chatter about doing MRT time lapses. we're not. I mean, Frumple just said that he's not going to post any more videos on his channel. But as always, nothing's stopping you guys from making them. Aqua, for legal reasons, we actually will need to delete and unpublish the member list and some of that other stuff on our closure date. The website will remain online until the domain expires. And we may figure out a couple things involving the website. But the main website is also pretty well archived in its current form. But like the town list we may publish, but the member list for legal reasons we will need to purge. Will the wiki stay online? I believe we answered that a little while ago. Wiki TBD on how that's going to work, just because the wiki's so big. The website by itself, like the main website, is pretty small, but the wiki is a lot bigger. So unknown on that.
Yeah, website's just basic WordPress stuff.
It's WordPress and a couple hundred images. That's
yeah.
It takes up a few gig. It's not that bad. Noah, will IITs be put on hold? No, those will continue through the last GSM.
Basically, guys, anything to GSM or ISM related, that's going to be what's the term? Business as usual. Like nothing's going to change for the next, I'd say, at least 6 months. So just continue to submit. Well, I guess there might be some proposals coming in that might put a stop to any major rule changes, but we'll get into more details about that.
That's
the IITs,
yeah. In terms of what you guys submit, like sections 6 through 10, those carry on as normal.
Yeah.
So, that's a section 9 item that carries on as normal. Okay, I think we're about done with this stage and the Q&A portion. So, thank everyone for your questions. I'm gonna have to run in an hour or so, but I'm guessing that as over the coming days, that we'll be around to continue answering questions. And again, know that like we're letting you guys know a year in advance, specifically so that when it all comes to fruition, that this is not something that catches everybody completely off guard, and also know that plans are subject to change. So we will absolutely, as soon as we know anything, we will let you know of what the timeline is and how everything is going to work. Please know that until we begin publishing that information, and even throughout most of this process, it's business as usual. And we hope that we all can come together and really make this next year a really big celebration of what we've done.
I will be around after. Well, there'll be sections after and before the end meeting for any other further questions. So
yeah, this is just section 1. We got 3 more sections to get through.
Yeah. I will be sticking around. So if you still have questions about section 1, I'll try to answer them toward the end. So,
for those of you who are thinking of doing personal statements, Noah, that question, I don't know what you mean. For those of you who are thinking of doing personal statements, again, as I mentioned a while back in August, I'm not going to stop you from doing so. I would just encourage you to take your time and please try not to use your personal statements to fight. Just make it about yourself if you're going to do that. Noah, that's okay. Noah, to answer your question of the plan, there will be some elements that will happen after the server closes, just because of how everything is set up on our end. But again, we don't know exactly what that's going to entail, and we won't know until we start working on it next spring. So, again, for if you've got timeline questions, we have no idea how everything is going to go down, or in what order, or when. So, but know that there will be a plan. We will publish it as soon as we have it. So.
Can we move on?
I think we're good.
A lot to go through.
Yeah, we've got a whole 3 sections to get through. So.
All right. Okay. I'm going to address the allegations against me that came up in July in this section. No, I'm just going to preamble this. My intent with this is I'm going to try to, I guess, defend myself or respond to these allegations as much as I possibly can. There are some of them where there is no evidence, there's no solid evidence for or against. So for that one, it really just becomes a he said, she said, they said situation. So you'll have to make up your own mind depending on who you talk to on that. So let's start with two. So there would be there is space for other allegations, but I want to go with the ones that at least the ones I do know of. I did talk with staff regarding these during the private portion as well, just so you know. So let's start with 2A. I'll just clarify. 2A and 2B, these were both submitted by Autobus to the August 2021 GSM. They were actually briefly put on the public portion, but then Chief made the decision, which I think it was a proper decision, to move it to the private portion regarding these. But now I'm going to show them here just to put everything in perspective here. Dingy, I'll get to that later. So how's this going to work? Well, since Otto was the one who brought up these allegations, I'm guessing that it would probably be appropriate if Otto were to speak about these. I'm not sure if he's available. Okay, Otto is requesting. How do I do this? Invite to speak. Okay, I sent you an invite, Otto.
I think it's so I think it's a little hard to discuss it in the way that's going to happen now, because I did already talk to Chief about the first, about 2A, and well, I do believe there was significant problems in that situation. It's clear more happened that I didn't know about in that situation as well. For anyone not aware, sorry for the creaking chair. For anyone not aware, Python, currently known as 6 Pro, they were banned at some point after a string of incidents and problems. One of those happened before the introduction of the 500 block rule, but after the introduction of the 300 block rule, there was a situation where Python made a town that was, roughly speaking, 350 blocks away from Ivella. Ivella ended up going into the range of that town. Of course, Ivella is far bigger, but let's keep that out of consideration for now. And subsequently, what kind of ended up happening is that Python ended up getting punished for putting his town there. Yeah, that's basically in very short terms what happened there. I'm not entirely sure if everything that happened after that between Pi and Fumple, but basically there was some uproar even back then, and I've had discussions with Fumple which I'm not. Well, some of them were not great, but
sorry, Otto, you cut out.
Hello? Where did I cut out? Sorry.
Fumple,
No,
I can still hear Otto
Hello?
normally.
Well, I think the problem's on your end. I'm hearing Otto fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's weird.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically that involved a situation where Python ended up getting punished despite keeping to the rules as written, because Fumple interpreted basically that the 300 block rule should be interpreted as if, for example, putting a town at 350 blocks away from a really big town, that was against the spirit of the rules, and as such also wouldn't be allowed, even though that was not communicated in that way beforehand, and very much so that to the point that members did not understand it in that way either. In that situation, back then, I ended up doing a poll of about 28 random members that responded in chat to it, and that received basically unanimous response that no one would reasonably interpret the rule that way. So what I was asking for here is, pretend and that mess. Of course, if that's the case, I argued here that Python's response, because Python got what Trump would label belligerent at that point. It was part of the lead up to the belligerent dissent rule. Of course, someone who is getting punished for in a way for a rule that could not reasonably be interpreted that way, it would be reasonable to expect a not so great response, especially considering that not everyone is per se the most mature without that necessarily affecting other factors of the community. There is a margin there where I believe that it was unreasonable for Pi to have at least received that the related portion of warnings that in the end contributed to his ban back in the day, and as such I requested staff to look into potentially posthumously retracting that ban.
Okay. My response to this is from many different directions. First off, I'm going to post this website post from when the 300 block rule was first put in place. This was back in June 2015. And if you read that, it's not in the rule itself. The intent of the rule is clear from this website post. It does say specifically, this rule does not mean you can just build towns 301 blocks away from an existing town. Please use your common sense and consult with your neighbors before establishing a new town. So there's the intent there. And frankly, I don't agree with Otto's interpretation that even though a bunch of people didn't understand the rule, quite frankly, based on in terms of warnings for any violations of the rule, there weren't that many. Like if you look in the warning list, the previous warning list from since when this rule was put in to the incident in 2018, there's only like 2 warnings from people who violated that rule. And in those cases, those were just blatantly just people ignoring the 300 block rule. So my understanding of when that rule was in place is that the convention was that people would ask their neighbors if they could build there. The problem is, and I think the crux of it is, Python decided to interpret the rules literally, and that's basically the source of conflict. And
would I be able to say something on that?
Yes.
There's actually a critical point here that I can see that might have caused this to happen, and that's that the wording in the actual rules was literal, and Pi joined quite a bit after the passing of the initial rule. Well, the only indication that it would apply this way would have been in the announcement for the GSM at that point. I already the Wayback Machine to confirm that was the case.
This is one of those cases where there's a written rule and there's the convention. And basically what I'm arguing is the convention was because there were no other, this was honestly the first time someone had argued to this specific manner about that rule, about the 300 block rule. And this was almost 3 years after the rule was implemented. So I would argue that I think most other people on the server understood that you you don't just build things at 301 block rule. That's not what the rule literally means. And therefore, in this situation, I decided to invoke most important rule number 3, which is basically, if we see someone that we think is not putting, putting, in this case, putting a town where I don't think is a very, if you recall, it was basically southeast of Avella. There were other towns surrounding it. It's not a good location. And also LD, I do know for sure, basically protested that he didn't want this town there. Like, this was against the spirit of the rule. And I had used the most important rule number 3 to say, Python, you can't just build there, right? And just to be really clear also, since you are implying that maybe I may have done some misconduct when talking to Python, for this particular situation, I do have the server logs and I do have the private in-game PMs with Python. I did I looked at that conversation. All I am doing is just basically saying, I'm not being mean to him. I'm not personally attacking. I'm just saying, you can't build here. You're not cooperating. If you're just going to be like this, I might just have to ban you from the server, right? And so since I can't show those logs, I did show those logs. I can't show those logs publicly, of course, because that's against the rules. But I did show it to staff, so they at least know that, that's how the conversation went. So
I appreciate the going back in and to make sure that this was done properly in that sense. I do retain a very strong disagreement on the application of the 300 block rule here, and especially because this was why the 500 block rule was introduced a few GSMs later, because it became very clear that people did not understand this rule this way in general.
Correct. It did. You actually proposed it, so you did improve that rule. But my point is, the rules are not going to be perfect, right? And in this case, this was a very clear example where there was a limitation of it. At the time, we thought just saying 300 blocks and nothing more would be sufficient, and frankly, it was sufficient for several years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate. I agree with that much, at least. I very much appreciate your looking back into the situation and making sure that this was proper, because I won't lie. I did have worries about that, especially based on there was anger after that.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I'm a little confused of why you're bringing this particular incident up, especially since it was so long ago, right? Because I think, as Chief has said and others,
I brought it up because from the outside in, it is a situation that has factors that make it look fairly similar to some of the factors that have gone into the current situations.
I understand that you're trying to look for a pattern, but at the same time, as you said, you don't have the full picture. And I'm a little concerned that you're trying to send out this allegation without verifying that before sending it. So because
I did not I did not suggest here that you misbehaved towards Pi, just to make that very clear. I just suggested that the interpretation of the rule that you applied and was not in line with how people would interpret that at that point, making the enforcement questionable.
That might be a misinterpretation, but the fact that you submitted with the one of Subway, I think it sort of got lumped in with that, right? I mean, I know for Subway, you are implying that I did engage in some misconduct. So, if
I said it should be investigated for the case of Subway, because I'm quite well aware that at least from some statements for your part, and also some statements from Subway's part, that the relationship between you and Subway had, at least in the sense of politics, and in the sense of interactions between each other when things started breaking down, have similarities to the particular situation. What I'm saying here was that this should be looked into, because if this goes wrong in one place and we see the response that you're going to get giving for particular, which we'll get to later probably, which I found concerning, to put it mildly, that would give me reasonable worry to also say, like, we should be investigating this other situation too that has indications of similar involving factors.
Well, the fact is, I do not take kindly to these allegations, and I'm responding very abrupt, like briskly with these. I have hard evidence in this particular case. So, and with Subway, I do also kind of have hard evidence as well. So, unless there's anything more about Python,
I only asked for this to be investigated. I did not make a direct accusation that you performed misconduct in that situation.
Quite frankly, I don't feel like I've had an appropriate venue to defend myself in any sort of case, and not just with Python, but all these other ones. So I'm going to do that. I'm doing that now.
All right.
So would you like to move on to Subway?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So do you have any initial comments? Because I do have one comment that or do you want me to explain my defense on this?
Well, as I said, basically what my intent here was to say, like, this situation has some similarities from the outside looking into the situation that happened with Vulpicula. This should be looked into to make sure it's not comparable. That's basically what I ended up saying in a lot of words.
Okay. In one part of it, you seem to imply that before Subway started getting her warnings, that the relationship between me and her was not great. Is that correct?
That is quite apparent from things Subway has stated long before the incidents, both publicly and privately.
I'm going to say I'm not sure if I agree with that. Or if it was, I don't remember that part. The one thing I will say is that from my opinion, the relationship between me and Subway definitely deteriorated when the warnings were issued, especially for the second, third, and fourth warnings. Second and third, not the fourth one. Because, and just to back this up here, the evidence I submitted to the staff were twofold. One was an explanation for each of the warnings, and why I thought they were justified. And two, I decided to dump all my Discord DMs to the staff with Subway. Obviously, I can't show that publicly, but for staff, I felt like this was the appropriate thing to do. And from that, from my perspective, like what ended up happening is every time Subway got a warning, I would attempt to try to communicate, talk to Subway, and explain to them what they did wrong, why it's wrong, what kind of harm it's making. And do you know what happened every time I tried to do that, Otto? I could try to guess that.
I would guess Subway got pretty frustrated.
Subway just didn't acknowledge that she did anything wrong. Like, it was just basically like talking to a wall. It would just go round and round, like the second warning, and then the next warning. Like, I just had the same conversation again, and all she would do would be she would not take any responsibility for what she did. She'd put the blame on other people, like, for example, Leet, and I think that was in one of the warnings. Yeah, she would just make excuses. And I think you can imagine for anyone who's trying to deal with that can get pretty frustrating, because clearly the person's not listening. They're not learning anything from this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my, and the DMs show that as far as I'm concerned. Like I looked back through them and it was, yep, that sort of thing. So
if that's what the what a review of the situations results in, then yeah, that would make me very happy. That might be a very, very peculiar way to say it, but okay, it's understandable that.
I get my point is my point is it does seem like you were I do know that you are communicating with Subway. I do know that
I did not communicate with Subway about this.
You didn't. Really?
I had one message with Subway about this after I already had made this public.
Okay.
I came to this from my own concern, and I basically am putting here that from the outside in, I'm seeing some similarities that may point to a problem here as well. We should look into this. And as you quite clearly point out, looking into this reveals there was no problem here. And that's pretty much the result that I hoped for, if that makes sense.
Okay. For this, I'll take your word for it. Yeah. Okay.
Because I didn't say these things. I didn't bring up these two situations to say like, oh no, Frumpo is a bad person. He's done this, and this wrong. I'm very.
You're I'm just going to stop you right there. You're expressing this intent, but the way you've submitted these, and also that I know that you've been saying things like and we'll get to this, like you've expressed that I've been making a toxic environment on the staff team and all that sort of stuff and all these other things that you said, or you've also said that there's going to be requirements for my return, or prerequisites, I should say. Like all this, quite frankly, Otto, makes me think that you're not being as neutral as possible when it comes to this sort of thing. Like it does feel, I'm going to be frank. It does feel like I feel like people are bandwagoning and anyone who's had a slightly negative reaction is basically bandwagoning and saying, oh, Frumple is a bad person, right? That's how I'm interpreting
just because the conclusions that I ended up reaching from reviewing the situation are quite severe, and do say like I really believe there is a lot that's gone wrong here. To put it mildly, does not mean that the idea does not mean that I didn't look at this from a neutral perspective. I can reach a conclusion that's very, very critical of you, even if you don't feel the same way.
But I've already shown that you haven't looked at it. You haven't looked at everything. You've sort of reached
the two situations we talked about here. I asked on the first hand, made an appeal based on the way the rule was applied, which was not commonly understood to be applied that way by the member base, which in the end also resulted on other changes. And in the second case, I asked for the communications to be investigated because there were some outside similarities from what I can see between the situations, but I could not establish whether or not similar problems arose in the Subway situation, which is why I asked to investigate.
And then,
please do not misconstrue what I asked to be investigated as an accusation against you in line with my conclusions that I drew from the rest of the response to the situation. Those are not the same thing. I understand
we'll put that aside. I understand
that it might feel bad, and I understand that it.
Well, it did require me to defend myself.
It
did require me to do all this work to defend myself, and that was not fun at all.
I understand that's not fun, but it might be at least looking into the situations was definitely what was needed at that point.
I do agree that it was necessary, that I did need to do that. But I kind of wonder if there would be a better way of going about this instead of, just making these sort of arguments. But that's enough about these two. I think we've talked about these too much. Let's move on to the next thing. Actually, I'm not sure if this is worth talking about, unless I don't know, Fresk or because this one is actually one that Skelly brought up to me. So Skelly, I don't know. Do we just want to skip this one, or is it
Skip it.
Skip it. Okay. If Fresk wants to bring this up, then I'll let him do that. But yeah. Okay. Let's move on to court then.
Well, Fresco is typing in the general chat.
Okay. So you're still typing? Okay. Fresk says, I think I owe you an apology more than one. Okay. Do you want to go into specifics about that, Fresk, or do you want to leave that till later? Because I don't know. I'm not. This one was honestly, out of all the 5 of these ones, this was the least concerning to me, to be honest. But that's up to you. Okay. Sure, we can do that. Okay, let's move on to court then. I don't know who would have comments about this. Otto, Skelly, we've already talked about it in the private portion, but I don't know if you want to reiterate that.
I guess I'll reiterate it. It's mainly centered around the quotes that Cortesi claimed that Frumpel said to him in a conversation to MBS, and it was broadcasted on the Bulletin in November. Well, not November. The Bulletin in August, but the conversation was in November. December 2020.
Yeah. Would you mind posting the image you showed in the staff chat, Skelly, if you don't mind? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so these are the quotes which Cortesi claimed for that Frumpel had said to him.
I'll try to fill out the context from my perspective on this, because I think some people don't even know where this conversation came from. So I think if you have the archived role in Discord, you can actually go look up Kyle's nomination channel, and you'll see that it is, to put it mildly, a minefield of people. Actually, a lot of people. This was right after the fallout from last October, so there was the discussion did get derailed quite a bit from people who were, on Mumblecrowd, against Mumblecrowd. Like, it's a mess essentially. From this, it's pretty clear from this conversation that Court's behavior here was not okay. He got very belligerent with some of the people in that channel, and he, if I recall correctly, he actually, I think, announced leaving, though I may be wrong there, and that was that. So I decided at some point later, as Skelly said, in November, to have a chat with Court, and frankly, that conversation did not go well. What I'll say right now is that there are, at least from my perspective, there are two main parts of the conversation I remember. The first part was mainly about how Court was being dismissive and basically was dismissive of all the people out, in the anti-mumble crowd, quote unquote, and basically saying that they're basically just not listening to them. And I was not pleased with it. This screenshot from the MS, that is, well, not all of it is what I said, but it is that's where that part of this is from that part of the conversation. So I will confirm, I definitely did say the last line at the very end of the conversation. I did say, "You're not welcome here. You should not come back." That sort of thing. I did call him stubborn. I think you are being stubborn. I don't know where this word "stupid" comes from. I don't think I did say that. So that's my position there. The other two parts, honestly, because the conversation was so long ago, I don't remember if I did say that. It's certainly in the realm of possibility that I could have. So that is my position on that. Outside of that, though, again, as I said, there's no evidence for this part, and as well as Vulpicula's part, for or against. So all this is, again, it's a he said, she said, they said sort of situation. All I'm going to state here is that's what I remember, and that. Oh, sorry, I forgot. There's a second part of the conversation that's not part of this. The second part of the conversation is there was a part where Court apologized, well, quote unquote, said sorry for what he did, but in the same almost in the same sentence, said that he stood by what he had said. And basically, I found that to be very, really confusing, because that in itself is not an apology. That is pretty much, it's not an apology. And I tried to point out this to Court, but he was not interested in listening. And if I recall correctly, the one part I do remember from that conversation is he said that he thought he was an adult and that he didn't need to reflect on this. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm still speaking. If it's cutting out, then yeah, hopefully I don't need to repeat anything there.
It's not cutting out for me, so it seems like it's going through.
Seems like a local Discord thing, but I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, so those are the two parts of the conversation I remember with Court. Yeah. So that's that. What else? So I don't know where else to go from here. I don't know if there's anyone has any comments about that part. But yeah, I'm sure that Court will have a different story. Personally, I don't think he's lying. It's very possible that he's misinterpreted what I said, but I can't know for sure because there's no evidence. We don't know. There's no evidence. Yeah. No, Mega, I don't agree with that. In my mind, if some, based on what I remember from it, it was, I don't think he understood what an appropriate apology was supposed to be. And based on what he was saying, it didn't sound genuine to me. So. But again, that's my interpretation of it. That's that. Okay. Noah's saying, I think we need to address how prevalence health, how we can solve that. I don't. That's a whole other topic. I don't know if we need to go into.
Raise the standard of what you hold each other to.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we've tried that. I'm not sure if that's worked. I think what people need to remember is yes, I am the owner. So yeah, I think there is some level of higher standard because things what I say can affect everyone. But at the same time, people also forget that I'm just a human, and I can lose my temper. I can make the wrong call sometimes, right? I think people have seen that. And for some cases, I think some people have overinflated expectations of what I should be doing. So yeah, I'm certainly open to criticism if that criticism is valid. But quite frankly, like there are cases where I think the criticism isn't valid, and yeah, I will call that out if I think that is the case. I mean, as if I get a higher standard, there is higher pressure. That's part of it. Yeah. Mike says, why is discussion going to people who aren't here, part of the community? I mean, there is a point there. Like for people who are not even here, then like, well, I'll probably talk about it at some point later.
Yeah.
Is there
Chad's kind of going off on a tangent?
A little bit, yeah. Okay, we can come back to this topic later if we need to, but let's move on to Vulp if you don't mind.
I think just for the sake of keeping us on track, might be a good idea to move on.
Okay. Okay, so regarding Vulp, there's a lot going on here. I'm guessing Otto would want to talk about this part, and maybe others. Obi, you can request to speak, and we can add you on here if you'd like. Okay, or you can talk in text form. That's fine too. Otto, did you have anything to say regarding this? Okay, you want me to start? Okay. That's hard for me too. Okay, so from the letter, from Vulp's, how should I put this? Let's acknowledge that yes, there are some things I did wrong in this situation. There, like specifically, there is the two things that I apologized for in the letter was that I said publicly that I didn't like Vulp. That was not professional of me, and that I went over the line there. So I do apologize for that. The other part, which I've thought about since then, this one's a bit more complicated. I think I definitely chose the wrong approach to talk to Vulp. And I think this will probably open a whole other discussion, but I feel like I did not really understand Vulp as like how the thing I didn't realize is how tied his identity is to his political beliefs, if that makes any sense. Because it seemed like in that part of the discussion where I was basically trying to explain effectively what systemic racism was. I was trying to explain to him, why is this a thing? Like, why are people talking about it? Like, what are the aspects of it? But what I ran into was just not really like Vulp didn't want to listen to any of that. And I think that was the wrong approach to go about that. I need to do something different there. So those two things, yeah, that's where I think I did wrong. Everything else, though, regarding Vulp, I think Vulp needs to take some responsibility for those things. Specifically, and I'm not sure if I should point this out now. Specifically, there are 2 points in Vulp's letter where, and I did sort of address them, but I'm going to try to be explicit here. Is I think this is a thing that you were accusing me of just a few minutes ago, misconstruing intent, or specifically, he was jumping to conclusions about my intent. There's actually a term for this. It's actually called mind reading. I'm going to post a few links in here. One sec. Okay, so the 2 situations I'm specifically talking about is in the first one is when I had that conversation about BLM with him. He stated in his letter that he thought he basically thought I thought that he had negative opinions about Black people, something along those lines. I don't remember, and that was not my intention. I tried to explain that in my response. The key part of this is he did not. Oh yeah, sorry. And the second part was later, like in the conversation, he did not. When I was in the middle of the conversation, he claimed that because I was explaining this to him, he implied that I was a racist, right? Or trying to elevate a group over him in a way. In this sense, in both of those cases, he did not ask me to or didn't clarify or verify whether that was my intent or not. Yeah. No. All these conversations happened in private voice chat. So if you want a description of how those conversations went, you should look at both Vulp and my letters. That they sort of together paint a better picture of what happened. What Vulp's been doing, at least in those 2 examples, is what is called mind reading. It's what is known as a cognitive distortion. The reason I know about this is because I learned about cognitive distortions when I was in therapy for depression. And a lot of the same things for depression or anxiety are part of this. And just to be clear, I'm not implying that Vulp, I don't know what his situation is, or mental situation is, but all I'm going to point out is the specific behavior. And Sasha, Sasha, don't read too much into that part. It doesn't. I'm not implying that it is anxiety, but I'm specifically pointing out the behavior. That's mind reading. He did not confirm with me that was my intent. And quite as you can imagine, because he did not do that, he reached his own conclusion and based his complaints on that. And I think you can imagine how frustrating that is. How do you deconstruct that, right? How do you respond to that? Because their impression, their version of reality seems to be quite different from what I intended. So anyway, I hope I'm not going too much into psychobabble here, but that is my conclusion from this. That's what I feel like I experienced. Yeah. I do know that toward the end of the conversation, I inadvertently caused him to essentially have a panic attack, and that was definitely not my intention. But I do realize that's the effect, and that I can't really undo, right? So. How would, Sasha, I'm going to ask you this, how would that apply to my views as well? Like, what specifically how would this apply to here? And Eden, go ahead and ask your question if you'd like.
Okay, so yeah, you can hear me. Okay, so I don't know if it's directly related to it, but like
Eden, you're pretty quiet, at least for me. You might need to speak a little closer to your mic.
let me see if I can. Yeah, I can't get any closer to this.
That works. I can hear you now.
Okay.
That's much better.
So, my question is like, do you feel like there are enough conversations that you have when things go wrong, where you do have like constructive conversations and like that they are held to, like that you can keep them to a reasonable standard, or do you feel like everyone you talk to pretty much doesn't follow that standard and then get a bit fed up when you are expected to follow that standard?
Can you rephrase the question? I'm not sure if I understand fully. Like,
yeah, so do you are there enough, how do I phrase this, like do you feel comfortable holding yourself to a high standard if when you feel like other people around you might not hold themselves to that standard? And is that a real issue that you're like dealing with a lot? Because it seems like that a bit.
I can say that it's certainly frustrating. I'll actually cite Fresco's example. If he, I don't know if he minds, but yeah, like when I had a conversation with Fresco, I just basically stated that I disagreed with some of the things he said. I won't go into details about it here unless he wants me to. And as soon as I found that he wasn't listening to it, I decided, okay, that's your position. That's your decision to leave the server, because I think he had announced that. And then that was that. Actually, Nita, and since you're a staff, you can actually see that DM if you want to go look in the private portion. So
yeah, I'll take a look in a bit. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I personally, I do have a standard, a personal standard of how I think people should interact. Like, I would appreciate if people had empathy for other people's positions and not just think about themselves. In a lot of cases where it's just like people are, making excuses or not taking responsibility for themselves, that doesn't, usually the conversations don't go that well after that point. So,
Obi just posted some DMs from Volt. And then, sorry.
Okay. Comparing the castle, bad. I'll admit that was a bad example to bring up. So that's not. Yeah. To be clear, I don't. It's Volp's choice what he wants to do. Like, all I'm saying is, I'll make this very clear. This is my position on Volp. Like, if someone is to be an effective moderator on the server, they need to be at least open. They need to at least acknowledge that things like systemic racism is happening. Like, my frustrations with Volp mainly stem from, like, I don't feel like he acknowledged those sort of things. He did. Every time I tried to bring it up with him, he just shut down the conversation. And especially during the first time when I was talking with BLM, I said, okay, I'm just going to back off and not pursue this for now. But then I noticed, like, he, in politics, whenever we are discussing whether to punish someone, he'd be one of the first people to dismiss complaints or dismiss people's remarks in there, saying that it's not that bad. And then there was, do I have a link to this? Maybe I will. Sorry, give me a sec here. I posted a link. I don't know if the timestamp will work, but it is. I'll just write it down just in case. There was a comment that I didn't include this in the letter. Actually, I didn't realize this, but I did remember it afterward. Was he did make a comment. This was when we were discussing the topic to add a anti-racism, anti-sexism, that basically that policy into the server. And one of Volp's comments was basically, he claims that men are a marginalized group as well, and is to quote him, depending on where and how. And it's very clear that myself and other staff members rebuffed him on this, saying that no, that's not the case. And I think I'll just say that from this point, like, I started having more serious concerns about, like, where Volp, like, stood, because like I'll be very clear. I do feel like he was. As I said in the letter, he was ignorant, and to be very clear, I don't mean that as an insult. I'm not trying to personally attack him. I'm saying that as a factual statement. Yeah, the key part is, are men marginalized in general, and that's the part, wasn't it? Do I think Volp racist or ignorant? I'm leaning strongly toward ignorant. Like, again, specifically, if you're going to be a moderator on here, you need to be aware of these sort of things. If you're going to be an effective moderator, if you're just going to just ignore a whole portion of people's experiences or what people have to go through each day, you don't want to listen to, what people are saying. That's a big problem in my mind. And frankly, in all my conversations to try to talk to him about it, he simply didn't want to talk about it. So, no, it's not. No, in terms of, again, specifically what I didn't like about Volpe was that he was not open to learning about these sort of things. That is what I'm specifically I was not happy with Volpe. So,
could I ask a question?
Sure.
Maybe this is a weird one to ask, because I do understand what you're trying to say.
Sure.
But was it, if it makes sense, was it your place to have this discussion in this manner with someone who you have a position of power over in that point in time?
If my intent again, my intent was not to attack his personal beliefs, but is just have a conversation about how those beliefs fit into the moderator position. And I understand. I understand that I'm in a position of power. So yeah, there's a bit of irony there, right? But the thing is, I made this policy the whole anti-racism, that whole policy, like, that was passed in November. I posted in staff channel. Volp did not talk to me if he had any, like, strong objection to it, right? And Also, add on to this, just for context, the initial conversation I had with Volp right after the whole kicking thing, we first talked about the kicking stuff, right? And I basically said, yeah, I said that, standard stuff. I did not like the kicking, and Volp said he didn't agree with what I said. So that was that. And then Volp asked me explicitly, what do I think of him? And at that point, I thought, like, okay, maybe this might be the time to bring up this concern I had, right? But I can see why Volp might have turned that into, like, oh, this is an attack on him. That's not what I wanted to do, but the effect is like that.
Related, could I ask a question? I'm just going to ask it. Not sure.
Sure.
Not sure if I made that an additional question. Very often, and this entire conversation, there's a very big focus on people misinterpreting what you've said. It is somewhat. I'm not sure how to best word this, so I'll go with how it's coming up now. But if there might be some wrong nuance in here, because I did not have an hour to think about how I'm going to say this, because I did not expect to be asked this question.
Go for it.
Beyond interpretation of what people said, people's intent, there can be a very, very big difference between what ends up being said and what ends up being interpreted in a conversation and someone's intent behind saying something. There's a saying about this: the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Your point is.
I'm sorry, I'm blanking out.
Okay.
I wanted to ask a question about this relating to what you just said, but I completely forgot what you just said. Oh, that's annoying.
Okay. Can I just I'm just going to throw in devil's advocate here, Otto, because I think I know one. Sorry, if I just sort of detour here. I know that you have a kind of complaints about me and misinterpreting intent, right? That's fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that like what I'm gonna say this, like, everyone will misinterpret, like, they'll misinterpret intent or jump to conclusions at some point in their lives. Like, it's not restricted to just people with depression or anxiety. Everyone's going to do it at some point. But the key parts I want people to remember here is there are two things. One, how often are they doing it? And two, after they do it, do they acknowledge that they did it? And do they apologize for that?
This is not the direction I was going to go in. I'm sorry.
Sure. Sorry. That's fine. But I just want to point that out because I wanted to bring that up at some point.
All right.
Because that is, I feel like people, because I can see the argument like, oh, I'm accusing Volp of misinterpreting intent, but then people will say, oh, what about you, Frumple? You've misinterpreted intent too. Yeah, but there's key parts of it where it's like
actually, what I was more going to go towards, because I remember now. I'm sorry for what happened for this. Sometimes when I get stressful, my short-term memory goes out of the window.
Okay. Then okay, go for it.
Not every misunderstanding of what someone is intending to say is because someone misunderstood the other person's intent. There's also, from my experience, generally actually the more common thing is that there is a problem in communication, which can be one person or the other person, that causes what's being said not necessarily to line up with what someone intends. That's
think you've lost me there. Sorry, I don't know.
There is there can be a very big disconnect between what someone intends to say and convey and what they end up saying in practice, or what the implications of what they're saying might have with factors that they're not considering at that point in time. And For me personally, what I see a lot is the moment, and I'm kind of seeing this here in a few places too. The moment there is a misunderstanding of each other in a conversation, in situations that you've been involved in, specifically this one too, that the conclusion comes down to they misinterpreted what I tried to say, rather than there was a miscommunication. Why did that happen? There can be misinterpretation, and I believe that's very probable, but that's very unlikely to be the only factor in that sense.
I agree that there was a miscommunication here. Like, but the thing is, the problem is I don't remember exactly what I said, right? Like, I don't know whether I could have said something in a better way, except for the fact that maybe except for the one thing that maybe I shouldn't have just gone on and tried to explain systemic racism to him. But personally, for me, I felt like that was the right, like at the time, I thought that was the right thing to, like, I thought that was the appropriate thing to do because my impression was, well, does Volp understand what it is? Do I need to explain it? Right. From all the signals that Volp was giving me, there was no indication that he did. Like, I guess the point is, I don't know. I mentioned this in the letter. My mindset and Volp's mindset, I think we can agree they're very far apart. We have very different ways of how our brain works, if that makes sense. So, yeah, like personally for me, I at least in those examples I cited, I feel like, again, the point is he didn't try to verify this. He came up with those conclusions on his own. And frankly, like, especially this part where he's claiming I'm a racist. I never said anything close to that. So I'm like, where does that come from? Right? I don't feel like there's, well, how do you miscommunicate that? Right? Does that make sense to you, Otto? Like, especially for that specific example. Like,
could I give an example for that specific example?
Sure.
Examples of examples. I had a conversation with Crimson once in private about BLM issues and about systemic racism. And something that ended up happening in there is that I made an argument that when combined with other positions we disagreed on, would result in very different conclusions on the other end, without there being a misinterpretation of specifically what someone intended to say or what someone actually said. There is a very, very annoying gray area where that can cause intent, and not just the way something is interpreted, but also the way something is in general processed, to be very different from basically what you intended to say, because there's other factors involved that
Sure.
aren't necessarily misinterpretation of each other.
Sure.
And that can also the key part of that is that can also, this is something that I'm not saying it's necessarily the case here, but something that I do want to ask to consider is that problem can also occur on the person making an argument or saying something by not mentioning something they would see as a default, as something they would see as a given, or that might not necessarily be the case.
I agree that can happen.
Very big areas where very often, especially in discussions on this subject, as I've sadly noticed myself, in discussions with people where the conveying of information, the error is not always that they misunderstood what your intent is. The error can also be, did you actually provide the information needed to properly process that without the positions or givens that other people might not have?
So I agree that can happen. At least in the example I provide, I don't see any reason. I don't see any least anything indicative that that's what happened. Like, to me, it feels like, again, he came up with a conclusion that had nothing to do, like, nothing. I did not explicitly say that, nor even go near that, right? So it feels like to me that there's a jump in logic happening on Volp's side, where he's just going straight to that conclusion, right? That's how I'm seeing that. And in this case, nothing I would have, well, there might have been something I could have said, maybe if I was very delicate about it. But I think in most cases, I don't think...
In conversation, miscommunication with conversation with Crimson at some point, so that ended significantly less dramatically than this. Sorry if I'm laughing. I laugh when I'm nervous. Just don't interpret that as me thinking anything is funny, because it's not. Where was I? Basically, what ended up happening is that we had a different understanding, a different default of how, when different rules apply, and especially effects of rules, intentional or not, have certain effects, and how that ended up playing into into basically what would end up being discrimination. We didn't have the same default base there, and we ended up in basically the exact same spot where I got accused of basically racism against white people in the context of certain statements because of that. And that didn't happen because he misunderstood what I said, or because I misunderstood what he was trying to argue, but because we didn't come from the same basis of information that gone beyond the argument in regards to how various impacts or various factors of how laws work in this case would impact various people in ways that would be discriminatory.
Okay. I feel like we're going in circles a little bit here.
Actually, having had this conversation with Vulpicula 2 at some point, I ended up in a very similar situation with Vulpicula, which leads me to believe that it is possible for something similar to have happened here, because it's basically the same discussion.
As I said, the way Volp's brain works and my brain works we are not on the same wavelength at all, right? My position is I tried to ask questions to try to get to know what Volp's position was, but the response that I would get would be like, shutdown. He didn't look at any of the links I put, like those video links. I know they're not the best, but I did find it a bit rude that he didn't even look at them, right? And he just, as far as I know, Obi, he didn't. That's what he told me. So
he did. No, Obi. He was able to explain.
Obi, to be clear, he didn't see the ones that I sent him. He looked at other stuff on his own, but not the ones that I sent him. That's what he told me. So yeah, and to be clear, I also sent a letter. He did his research on his own, and he came back saying he didn't believe it. I'm not really. I would have liked him to at least look at what other people are like, what other people are posting or giving to him, like, right? Because to me, if he's just looking at his own stuff or just is on his own research, that's susceptible to his own personal bias, right? So it's worth looking at other perspectives.
Of course,
but
I think that does tie in a little bit into the question where we started, though. Was this? Well, Sasha's making a good point here, but
Sasha, yeah, no, that's intentional. Yes, it is. It is going to be of my bias. Yes, it is my bias. That's fine. The problem is he's not even looking at the ones I.
That's kind of where I was going to come in, because I was basically about to say that in combination with you putting yourself into a position of being of basic, at least coming across, because I would readily say this would come across this way to me too if I was in a situation beyond what was stated, that you are basically acting as an authority regarding their position, the moderator team, in relation to the topics being discussed.
To be clear, hold on.
Meaning that
hold
no
on,
matter
Otto, hold on.
The intent was
the context. You're missing context. The conversation I had with Volp wasn't. That was I'm talking about the first one, BLM. There was no conversation about his position as moderator or anything like that. This was just a casual conversation. This was just, we're gonna let we were already talking about these topics beforehand, and then as we talked, I decided, maybe I should send these links just to as a way to continue the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was no, like, I understand that, yes, I'm in the position of power in that sense, but the conversation, there was no threat on his position at that point. This was just, we're just talking politics. And this was a voice conversation, yes, that is correct, Sasha.
Just as a general question, because just so I can tie these ends together, was there any indication at any point in time regarding his political positions that it might have an impact on his role as a staff member before that point?
No, because I didn't know him that well. The point of the conversation was to get him to know him. I wanted to know more about his position. But frankly, I came out of that conversation more confused because he was just he just slammed the door on me, effectively. So.
I'm going to have to think over that for a bit.
That's fine. I mean, Volp will probably tell you something completely different, and that's fine. So.
No, I'm actually not going to talk to Volp about that. No reason to do that right now.
Well, I mean, I'm just implying that if you were to, his version of events might be different. So.
Of course, we're two different people with two different worlds of experience. Of course, that it's going to be very different.
I feel like I need to say something else about this. I'm trying to remember.
In the meantime, can I just say a thank you for. We will likely leave this discussion with some big disagreements on certain issues, but for handling this right now in a professional manner.
Well, I'm going to be very honest, Otto. All these allegations, and based on what I basically looking from the outside in, pissed me the fuck off. Like, I'm not happy. And I'm going to be frank, your actions and Volp's actions had a direct impact on my decision to just shut down the server. Like, I'm just going to say that right now. Like, I felt like there was these allegations were like, just, I don't know how best to describe it, just not cool, right? And I guess this will be a transition to the next topic because I think it'll be relevant to it. So unless there's anything else unless you guys want to talk about more Volpicula, then I'm going to move on to the next topic. I think things will be a lot more clear, I hope.
I do stand behind most of the critique, at the very least, that I've given. And if that resulted in this impact, that would be something I find regrettable. But it doesn't change my interpretation of the situation. And it doesn't change that I believe it's important for it to be shared. I just want to make that clear to the people in this community here, because I don't want to be pinned as the reason that the server shut down in that way by saying like, oh no,
you're not
in this.
You're not context. The only reason. There's a whole bunch of other reasons too, but I'm just saying
I know
you did have a direct impact on it.
I just wanted to make that clear to everyone. I did what I did because I felt it was important to do so, and I felt it was very important to make sure those critiques were out there in the context of that situation.
Regarding the conversation that's between Noah and Eden, yeah, I that's how I felt. Like basically, these people were basically in all these cases. It's again, I'm trying in Python, in Subway, in Fresk, in Court, and so involved to some degree, but I don't think we ever got to that point, to be honest. This was me trying to explain to them what they did wrong. I was trying, and there's no point I was trying to personally attack them or be mean to them. I was just saying, this is not okay. This is causing harm to other people or is causing disruption to the server. And then I'd explain that, and then their response would be to not acknowledge it. They just didn't agree with it. And then on top of that, they then went on, well, not Python because he's not here, but definitely Subway and the others. They went on to complain and make me the bad guy. They, as in, like, trying to make this like as if I did something really wrong, right? So at the end of the day, if I'm trying to simply explain to people, like, just firmly and fairly, like, what they're doing wrong, and this is the response I'm getting, why would I run the server? Like, why do I deal with that sort of shit, right?
I can see that. I'm not
Okay.
really in agreement, but I can see that interpretation. I can see why, basically.
What part do you not agree with, Otto, just out of curiosity?
How the hell am I going to word that? Oh boy.
You're the one who said it, so I'm
Would you give me a moment to consider how to word this?
Sure. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead with the exercise right now, so you can have a lot of time to think about it. Well, there's a lot of things I want people to think about.
I did want to say one thing regarding the letter, because I see some of the people in Meeting Live saying, like, about throwing a lot of criticism into someone's face instead of handling this in a better way. No, at this point, when I said to respond to what Noah said specifically, when I sent in the way I interpreted the situation and the response writers then broke that down, at that point, Frumpo had removed himself from the conversation to leave other people to consider the events and how to deal with this. That there was no real other way than to sit down or discuss or and analyze the situation upon which discussions could happen in the way I did in that sense. You can argue a lot about the contents of what I said, about the tone that the letter ended up having with the conclusions that I reached, but there wasn't really a different way to do an analysis like this, other than a letter like this. Frumpo explicitly did not allow people to contact him for those purposes. There was no way to do that.
Hold on.
I would have actually done that if Frumpo had been open to do so and hadn't shut that door, because I would have really liked. I know this. I would have really liked to discuss that, because it would have likely resulted in a letter with more nuance and something that would have been, if there was an agreement on problems, something that was more actionable and something that would not have hit nearly as hard.
I'm going to interject here, Otto, because that's not exactly true. The thing is, there was a lag time between when Volp sent the letter and when I decided to leave. It's about, I'd say, almost a week, 5 days, I think, if I recall correctly. So in that sense, I did see after Volp, how do I say this? Right after Volp sent the letter, I did notice that there were a whole bunch of people in general chat. And I think you did inform me, Otto, that, and I think I probably guess, these are all people bad mouthing, essentially, about bad mouthing me, basically. Yeah.
Just to be clear, I took a lot longer than the point where I would have been able to present anything and discuss anything about this with Rumpel to even get to that point in the breakdown than it did for him or for him / you, depending on how you interpret who I'm talking to be able to have that discussion. That door at that point was closed, so I really Chief will be able to say this because I actually said to Chief, because I asked Chief to read over this at some point as well. I said I really would have wished to have talked to Rumpel about this before putting this out there, but I respect that he needs to take that distance as well.
Well, quite frankly, I felt overwhelmed. That's the best way I can put it. Like,
yeah, I can imagine. I would have been too, and I really do empathize with that a lot.
I will be also, Skelly, I think you did contribute to this a little bit, because you did come in during when I sent the letter. You just basically came in and accused me of all these things, right? So that pretty much solidified my decision to just get out of Dodge, right? Sorry, yeah, Sasha and Noah are correcting it. It was more 2 or 3 days. I was misremembering. So, yeah. Okay. Can we move on? Because I do want to get to the exercise, and this one is it's straightforward, but it does require this requires everyone here's participation. So it's a very simple question. Sure, yeah, you can ping people if they want to come back in, but it's very straightforward. Okay, so we're moving on to section 3. This is a very simple exercise, and then this will tie into some of the other things we've discussed so far. But I think it's one question, and I want you guys to think about this for a few minutes. This question is very simple. The question is, what do you think I get out of running the server? I'll repeat again. What do you think I get out of running the server? I'll just say right now, I've thought about this question a lot myself. There are multiple answers, but ultimately the conclusion is there is one main conclusion coming from this. Again, think about this question for a bit. If you want to post answers in the text, or actually, I guess text might be, or if you want to speak it, I don't know. But no, I'm not. Okay, I'm not going to say my answer first, because there is a point to this. I'm asking you, as a member of this community, what do you think I get out of the server? Yeah. I don't want to spell out the purpose of this question, because I think it just came in the way, but yeah. I see. Oh, okay. Well, I already see some answers right now. What I'm getting out of it now, to answer Underscore's question. Yeah, now. Okay, I see some. You know what? I'm gonna address every answer here, because I feel like I'm gonna go through everyone, because I feel like it's important here. Okay, I'm gonna start looking through these. Okay, Obi says nothing. Pretzel said nothing. I mean, you went straight to the end. You went straight to conclusion. So yeah, good job. But I'll elaborate on that in a bit. Aqua says stress. Yeah, certainly get that. And I'll spell it out for you right now. The reason I'm asking this, and I'm not giving my answer, is I'm trying to get people to empathize with my position on this. And to be quite frank, I don't feel like people understand that, or have tried to understand that. So, and to be clear, I've asked this question to the admins and the staff. They've gone through this exercise already. So, yeah. All right. So, Bro says satisfaction of keeping the community together. I'll put that aside for a sec. Yeah. Let me see here. Protocol's kind of hinted at it too. Needon says, looking at how you feel, I definitely don't feel connected to the community. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And yeah, Vicky, I get less than nothing. Yeah, that's definitely true too. Mega, yes, there is the technical stuff. I'll mention that in a bit. No, okay. I'll just outline what my answers were. Try to summarize it, I guess. So with some people have said like, where did I put it? Sorry, give me a sec here. Yeah. Okay. So the technical stuff that is there, it's still there. I mean, I'm going to go update to the server to Minecraft and deal with all that. I do still get a small amount of enjoyment out of that. But I can say for sure that's a very minor part of running the server. So I'll almost say that doesn't really count. So that's that. And I guess I'll go straight to this answer. The people implying whether or not I get the best way I can put it is, do I get a good fuzzy feeling from running the server? Like in terms of like, am I helping people? Am I, giving people a community for people to, interact and, not just be together and that sort of thing. I'm going to say right now, that feeling is gone. Like that feeling was there maybe, 3, 6, 9 months ago. It's not there anymore. And I think you can guess why, because again, all of these things that have happened. Like, I can't, like, there is, and that was probably the most important reason why I kept running this place. And I've stated it before. So yeah. And yeah, I think I probably talked to, Moj is saying that too. Some people might answer like, the socialization part is complicated. Like the one thing I did notice, because I'm, just so people know, I don't have any IRL relationships or friendships at the moment for, various reasons. So actually, in terms of just communicating with people, the MRT is my only thing there. So in that sense, that's a positive. But in terms of relating to people on here, I just don't. Like, I'm too old. I'm part of a different generation. But even then, there's also different interests, different personalities, as you can imagine. Like, I'm not friends with anyone here. And I want to make that clear, because I feel like there's also been this sort of, what's the word? Parasocial relationship that some people on the MRT have sort of purported. Like, they think I'm their friend. I've had to deal with that from some members. I want to make this very clear. I'm not your friend. I just run a stupid Minecraft server on the internet. Like, it's right. Like, I'm not your friend. Yes, Fred. No, I'm not your friend. I've stated this many times, but again, keep in mind the people are making these precarious social relationships and thinking that, like, they like to show me things on Minecraft and show me builds, and like, I have to say no. I'm sorry, I'm not interested. So. Pretzel, we've already been through this again, and Chief explained this a while back. Like, to keep the Discord up, that would require a moderation team, And based on what I've talked with staff, I don't think people really want to do that. Like it's going to cause it. It's yeah. Oh, to be clear, again, a lot of the admins are in like they're in full-time jobs. They only come on to help when they can, but that's their main priority. And the mods are in, they're all in different situations, but I don't think that's enough to really, moderate a community, I think. Otto, I definitely would not consider you a friend. So just make that very clear.
Probably, especially not after the events currently, but
yes. So yeah, I don't know if that helped anyone to clarify where things are. I have heard some things where, and maybe these people aren't actually at the meeting, but some people have said like I heard this comment from like I want to make it clear that this is I feel like I have to make a reminder. This server does not have to exist. And I want to make it clear, your participation in this server is optional. If you don't like how things are going, you can always leave. Some people have decided to do that, right? I understand that not everyone has that option because you have relationships here, like friendships and relations here. Those are hard to get rid of. But when it comes to like builds and stuff, at least have some options there. Like you can, export schematics or get the world download, right? So there is that. But again, your participation here is optional, and that is just as optional as my running the server. I don't have to run this place. And basically, after all this sort of stuff that's happened, I'm basically I'm pulling the jump cable. I'm saying it's time to bring this to a close. Right? So I feel like people have taken the server for granted. I think, and I'm not. I feel like, and there's I think several people have, in terms of what they've said or in terms of their actions, like those all contribute to that. Like one of the things I don't like is in the sense of entitlement, and yeah. No, I said if you could shut it down today, would you? To be very honest, if this meeting had gone very badly, I would have done that. To be really honest. Like if I felt like if I came in here and then everyone else was like not, if staff were especially if staff were all in revolt or not they're not interested in listening to me, or if members were like that, then yeah, I just turn it off. I just turn off everything, walk away, and that's that. Sorry if I'm not getting to everyone's question because there's a lot in here. Yeah, I chose to run it, but what I'm pointing out is that I feel like some people's attitudes through the server, like I feel like some people have made demands that are unreasonable of myself, of staff. Yeah. So examples, there's again Otto saying this, just like Otto basically saying that there would be prerequisites for my return. That's not his call to make, and that's just simply unreasonable. Like,
I still do believe that there are social prerequisites for this, and that there will be consequences if those are not met.
And I'm saying I don't give a damn about that. So,
and that is your right.
Right. So
you wish it was different, but that is your right.
I mean, to be completely transparent, I did ask the same question during the private portion because I anticipated that was going to be a view of the community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in regards to other demands too, like there are demands of, like during Frumple's absence, there was the demand. I think a lot of us noticed that Frumple keeps track of the Discord quite a bit, while a lot of us don't. Like I tried to do what I could to monitor the Discord while Frumple was gone, and I think Skelly did a great job too to try to keep on top of it too. And it was very hard to keep track of it. I mean, I don't have the time as I used to, working a job has taken most of the time that I did have for the community away. And I know you all have requested in the past to have more moderation in all the channels possible, especially politics. And I think a lot of us in staff have voiced that too. It's hard for us right now to meet that kind of expectation.
Yeah, I guess to summarize what CC's saying and what I'm saying too, I feel like some people's expectations are too damn high. Like,
yeah, that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, like, and it's not just like moderating. It's also like, I think there's one, like, some people still throw a tantrum when they can't get world edits, or they try to push GSM topics through, which I don't really feel like I'm interested in debating, or it expends too much energy to even just debate these sort of things, where I feel like this time and effort could be spent on better things or IRL things, right? Like, people aren't thinking about that sort. They're not mindful. The keyword mindful of these sort of things. And I feel like a lot of members of the community have failed on that, to be really honest. So. Yeah, and you know, we as staff, like I've said numerous times, like as Pretzel said, like in early toward the year, like I want people to empathize. I could just keep yelling this over and over again, but ultimately I can't change people's behavior. Like, it's up to them to decide. That's their choice to do that, right? So clearly that's not going to work, and at some point things are just going to break and or reach the breaking point. And congratulations, everyone, you've reached it. Like, I've had enough of this shit, basically. Yeah, well, so that's sort of a loop, because they think I've done something wrong because they haven't understood they may have not understood the full context of things, right? Or they already don't have empathy, so they just don't seem not just my point of view, but other people's point of view.
Or people do generally believe you actually did do some very serious things wrong. I'm not going to sit here and let you just say, like, oh, hey, the problem is just the fact that this community responded, and oh no, empathy. Yes, those are major issues, and I can understand the frustration, and I agree to a certain extent, but that does not mean that you did not get fair critique from people on what happened, and that there's serious problems there.
What are those serious problems then, Otto? Because I don't know if we've gotten through that.
Okay. How about we start with the whole way this discussion gone? You were very respectful, and I have a lot of respect for the fact that you are and that you handled this professionally. But what it comes down to is that this discussion has been primarily about the fact that you are done dealing with this, and that's fine. But the way it's done makes the problem the people that responded to the events that happened, rather than in seeing it as an integral part of what happens when things go haywire, and that also comes with rightfully so critique on the actions that happened that have to be given if there would ever been a path forward, regardless of whatever conclusion you've reached now. That's not fair to the community to put it to blame them in this fashion.
I don't agree with that, Otto. Like,
I understand we're not going to agree with that, but I do want it said.
Yeah, and you can have that position if you'd like, but no, like, ultimately, again, the server doesn't have to exist. Like, yeah, like, I don't know what else to say there. Like, Ursa, do you blame people for getting too attached to the server? No. In some weird way, like I feel like the server has this weird quality where a lot of people have used it as a crutch, maybe too much, as a way of dealing with, unfortunately, serious problems at IRL, right? This is, I think some people have already said, like, this in some ways have saved their lives or really improved their lives, right? So understandably, yeah. I mean, I want to caution them not to be so attached, but like, yeah. Yeah, and Vicky, I'm having to still deal with criticisms from Otto, and I'm just saying.
And even
like,
now, it comes down to the response to that disagreement comes down to this server doesn't have to exist, and
that's
basically is exactly what I'm pointing out. So
that's
thank you.
the reality. Like,
yeah, certainly. I am disappointed though.
And that's your right.
I'm going to leave this discussion now. I don't think this is going to be more productive than it has been. Have a good one.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's emotional for like probably everyone here, and like also like the discussion about because I get that people have concerns, but at the same time like you made it pretty clear that the concerns are not like I can't word this. I'm too tired, but like it's very emotional, all of this, and we know I know we have a great community, and like if we can build on that, that will probably be a good thing.
Okay. Sasha, I don't know what else to say about that. Like, I try to ask Otto for it to be more specific, but I don't know. Like, I don't feel like there was anything. Like, all the other things about like Python and Subway, I think those are clearly not valid criticisms. And the discussion about Vulp, I think that there's just simply a difference in opinion. So I don't know what else to say there. Like, if you want to feel like I've been dismissive, that's your right, but like, I don't agree there.
May I add a comment?
Sure, on this.
I think that your conversation you've just had with Otto was kind of symbolic for the state this is in, and what, like, from what I've personally observed. I mean, I haven't spent all of my time on the server, but I have seen the same conversations going on since Modgate. The stuff from all sides, things have to change. Things are not going right as is. Like, I don't like what the server's become, like what's going on. So I think at the end of the day, I mean, you've said this before, this is a dictatorship. So I think that people expecting some kind of democratic procedure maybe don't understand the state the server has always been in, because you are in charge, and ultimately it depends on your state of mind for what happens with the server. So I think it goes without saying that if you can't be bothered anymore, then you probably in the end do everyone a favor if you end the project in a civil way, obviously. But on the other hand, I feel like the community in the end is a very how do I put this, colorful organism with very many different people. And you've got users like me, for example, who I wouldn't say that I have many friends on here. I'm very good with the community, and I don't have anything against anyone, but all my friends are in real life, and this is purely a source of entertainment for me. but there's people who come on here to really live. And I think that perhaps I do understand people who think it's dismissive to put everyone in a box and say everyone has been annoying and to make it a kind of 1 versus 1. Because at the end of the day, I think that a fight with the community, or in the end, maybe having an issue with the whole organism, doesn't come down to people. And I think maybe also this kind of goes out to everyone, like, don't feel personally attacked by this, because this is not about you. This is about Frumple and the MRT, and we are one of hundreds. And Frumple is the person who all of this comes down to. And I certainly, from my perspective that I think I would do things differently. But at the end of the day, I need to kind of force that empathy upon myself and say, I'm not wearing those shoes. I'm not in that position. So it makes sense that I have other opinions. So at the end of the day, I think it's good that maybe you and Otto stop this discussion, because going around in circles in the end is just going to hurt everyone, and it's just going to make everything more tiring. And in my opinion, the sad fact is that since Modgate last year, it's kind of been going around in circles. That's not to say that productive discussion hasn't happened at all, but I think we've all come to this realization many times, but now it's finally happening with this special staff meeting, that there's no more sugarcoating, and that it's kind of a place of decision right now. And I think you've made up your mind. The community will stay the community, and there's always going to be new people. There's always going to be old people. There's always going to be different little groups. That's not something we, the staff or admins or you as an owner, have in your hands. So I think it's the very sensible decision to do what we're doing now. But I think maybe, I don't know, we could all do an effort to just make this as peaceful as possible, because if we give off bad vibes and pretend like there's been any serious issues between everyone for years, I just don't really see how it makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, this is all online, and I don't think we gain that much if we just blame each other for a bunch of stuff, because there's really not that much reason to blame each other and put each other at fault for things if at the end of the day we just turn off our screens and we're alone in our rooms again. And I fail to see what we gain out of this.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like, yeah, if I've blamed anyone, I do apologize. Like, that's not, I don't want to blame everyone here. That, just to be very clear. It just does. I guess what the feeling I'm trying to get at is, it does feel like I don't, especially when people were bad mouthing me, like, it did feel like I was alone, because, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, no, as in, no one had my back. Even some staff members, I'll say, didn't have my back, right? So, yeah, like, yeah,
it's just people looking at the same issue from two different sides, and we're bound to have different opinion, because as one of many, it's easy to say one thing, but then as the owner, like, you just see it all dawning upon you. So some users might think, oh, well, Frumple's totally overreacting, while you're looking at it from your perspective and saying, like, well, what the hell am I meant to do?
Or I should have done this earlier. Yeah, so. Okay.
But yeah, I think, like, we shouldn't, or again, this is my personal opinion, let's not have any regrets. Because if we look back and say, oh, we did this, and this wrong, but at the same time we're trying to end the server next year, then I don't see how that goes hand in hand, because there's nothing we could gain out of this to make the server work in the future if the thought of renewing it is fading away.
Are we sure about that? Like, at least if we point out what's wrong, we should at least show us that we don't do that again, right? Is that not the case, or am I misinterpreting this?
Well, obviously, I'm not saying, like, if we made, as a staff team, for example, if we made an error, to just, like, sweep it under the rug. But I'm saying that if there's any issue like the ban of Pi 0, like I understand that for some people it's a big deal, but if you look at the big picture, like what are we trying to get out of this? Are we really gonna put so much emotion, so much time into it? Does it like what's the best case scenario? Because what I've heard from the meeting so far and what I've seen from what the users have to say, it just seems like a lot of emotions going in, but I wonder like what it's for. Is it just for everything to be right in the end? Like,
maybe it's just worth to vent it out. I personally feel that way. Like I just want to vent that this is not cool. That's my thing.
Yeah, I get that.
I don't know if that's a good thing because obviously people don't like it when I vent like that. But I mean, I haven't been able to talk with anybody for the last 3 months, to be really honest. So
yeah, and I think I don't know, it must be difficult, especially if you say that this server is kind of your contact point. Like, I don't imagine it being too great to kind of always feel with your back against the wall.
Yeah, it's.
Then let's look at this last bit of the MRT is a friendly one, because I think we all do ourselves a favor if we put things behind us and make it enjoyable.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure where we are on the agenda right now.
There's other topics, and I don't know what that. So I guess this is just a Q&A. If there's any other remaining questions, this is the time to talk about it. So if you have anything else you want to talk about, it doesn't have to be questions, even other things. I just added that at the very end in case there was anything remaining. Robin, quite frankly, like for the months that I was away, I did not enjoy it. Because I was just angry, like at all the accusations that were being lobbed against me, and what I was going to do about it. And eventually, I reflected. I did some reflection, and the reflections came down to like, why the heck am I doing this? Why am I putting up with this? Right. So, yeah. So the answer to your question, no, it was not a fun time. Yeah, and I'll just say I do know that my decision is going to disappoint a lot of people, right? Like I am not that cold. I'm like I do see that, but I mean, like, yeah, like I don't know what else to do, right? Like, I think 10 years, to answer Robin's question, I think 10 years is a pretty good time. I think that's, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it served a purpose, right? It's something that I would never imagine would have been a thing. It's just, it's there. On this, oh yeah, when I'm doing a post, I have no fucking idea. And I don't usually think of, like, honestly, I'm in a state where, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I don't really have access to like therapy and all that stuff. So that's been on hold for years now. So I don't honestly, I don't know how to really progress from that. I'm aware, like, if I were to, yeah, if the MRT shuts down, then I go back to the position where I can't really talk to anyone. and that I'm going to have to get used to. Like it basically when I was away for 3 months. Yeah. And again, some people have attached the MRTs so strongly that it really affects them when like any like even decisions or just in relationships. I'm not sure if that's the most healthiest thing. I'd encourage people to like go do other things too, like not just revolve their whole lives around the MRT. But yeah. I'm just asking, do you prefer the idea of the MRT entity or return to the state you like? Here's the honestly, you weren't actually here for that part of staff meeting, but we had I'm honestly having difficulty of what that state I like looks like. I don't know how to really put that into words, right? Like, is it just no more drama? Is it no more people jumping to conclusions? Is it no more people, miscommunicating or whatever? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I think from what I've heard, it's just so many people have so many different ways they look onto it, and I definitely get your view of people jumping to conclusions, of people maybe not making or saying the most logical things, but then on the other end, maybe it's just some 13-year-old who doesn't really.
True.
A lot of people aren't even that proficient at English.
Yeah.
But definitely most of them aren't very proficient at what you may be looking for, or at this kind of professional manner of dealing with things.
I'll say this: there's been a lot of talk about immaturity in the server, like what that entails and what that means. The typical argument I've seen is people who are, it's usually the younger people, right? Because they just don't know. They're just not. They haven't reached that point. They haven't learned about those sort of things, or how to be more polite, or that sort of stuff. The thing is, I feel like, sure. Honestly, I feel like that's always going to be a thing. Like there's always going to be young people. They're still in the stages of growing up in puberty and all that sort of stuff. I've seen over the 10 years, I've seen people who might have been just total shitheads when they were like 12 or 14, and then they get better later on. And I've also seen people who are okay in 12, 14, and they get worse in their later years. So yeah, like it could change in either direction. I guess one of my main concerns, though, is it's not just people who are young. Like all the young people, that's going to be there. I've sort of grown. Honestly, I feel like that's going to happen. Like we're going to have to deal with that, even if the server were to continue and all that. Like that's just the way things are. The part that concerns me are the people who have grown into like adults and they've been here for like so many years, and I feel like I'm blaming people again, but I mean, immaturity is not age based, is what I'm trying to say. Like there are people out there too. Like,
well, yeah, but I mean, it's definitely not age based, but it's not purely like immaturity doesn't come from the inside either. Like everyone comes from different contexts. So
it's true. But ultimately, it's what we have to deal with is what is their behavior, right? We can't really. We're not psychologists here. We're not doctors here. We can't deal with it. So we have to sometimes make actions for the benefit of the community, because if we don't, then they're just going to cause more trouble.
Right? I understand that, but maybe it makes sense to look at the fact that we as moderators only get more frustrated if we have to deal with more immature people, but the people who we dismiss as immature might get more frustrated themselves because that's the only way they know how to act, and they have no idea what we're talking about because they think they're acting correctly. So in the end, it's just two frustrated teams kind of rubbing against each other. And I just don't see in which scenario that goes well unless we become more tolerant, because we can't expect that from a community. We can't expect, like, our membership application system that we have now doesn't filter that out. That's just basic human stuff that we'll always get through.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The membership app, at least all it does is really filter the really not like the ones that definitely don't fit here, the ones that haven't read the rules or provided a good enough reason to
The
be
ones
here.
that don't even cooperate the tiniest bit, basically.
Yeah. I hope you're not suggesting being more tolerant of that, because that's not good either, right? Like that's
No, I'm suggesting we I
can think of one. Like,
if think of the example of Crimson.
Yeah,
he got banned a couple, like, at the GSM.
Or he got a warning. He left on his own. So,
right. He got a warning.
Yeah.
No, but didn't he get an L5?
He got an L5, so he is double warned, but he decided to leave on his own. Yeah.
But I mean, he also got a ban resulting from the warning. It was temporary, but I think that, like, that's a perfect example of something where I'd say politically, I disagree, and also with the fashion of the way everything went down, I disagree. But in the end, I just have to recognize my bias, and I have to say, like, all right, my job is purely to look at this objectively and kind of not judge from my context, but from the objectivity of the server, of the rules that we created. And that's something I've struggled with the most, because I'm reading the meeting live chat right now, and Pi is saying that you shouldn't center your life around the Minecraft server. And when I joined, that was precisely my opinion. That like, I came on here, Minecraft was just a source of entertainment. I was, now in hindsight, realizing, lucky enough to have a circle in my real life that I can rely on. But the hard truth I've learned here is that that's not the way it is for everyone. And if my main lesson on here is that just, like, online means so much more than you'd think, and I didn't expect that to be a lesson I'd learn here.
Yep.
So, but, like, kind of stepping back out of that, like, I don't think everybody quite understands how much online means to some people, and it definitely took me a while.
I totally agree with that. Like, yes, for a lot of people here, this is their only, because I know I've heard a lot of stories in Sirius where people's IRL situations are shit. Like, their parents suck, their school sucks, their world sucks, and this is their only escape. And so, yeah, I recognize that this is their only way. This is their only place. But at the same time, there has to be, I guess the best way I can put this is boundaries, right? Like, I put guidelines in Sirius channel, but it's also in terms of just like interactions on here. Like, we're not professionals. It's not a responsibility to help you. Like, we can do some things, but we can't diagnose things. We can't, like, that's a big burden to put on people in the community, right?
Yeah.
So
I think what I'm trying to say is that, like, that's a difficulty with the whole structure of what this is. Because remember from reading the rules, it's just a game is a big thing. But
it's not. But it's not.
It's almost as if the MRT is too good. It works as a community too well, so that people start becoming too dependent on it, which again puts staff in a very awkward position of, we're meant to moderate a game essentially, but we're here taking care of people's real life issues.
Yeah, and when people bring those IRL issues to everyone else, it does cause stress to everyone else. Like, and I'm not blaming that person at all. Like, again, this is their only way, but it does have an effect, right? So
it's almost for me as if I wish that that people who join the MRT, like, as if they could be guaranteed another place where they can truly vent. It's not like they shouldn't be able to here, but I don't think it's healthy to have the MRT as your last resort.
Honestly, I've been actually to, because I'm, I deal with I don't know. I'm pretty open with my depression. I have tried going to some specific other Discords that are actually specifically for those sort of things. Personally, for me, I've sort of bounced off those. I didn't feel like I got included, but I feel like maybe, that could be an option for people. Like, these are places where specifically the people in there are dealing with those sort of things. Again, the people who are running them they're not professionals, but they are there. But I've seen some of these Discords, they have like rooms where people can just vent and talk about these things with other people. And I wonder if that might be an option for some people. It might not work for everyone, of course. But yeah. And it's also a case of finding the right Discord. Some of them are not great, right?
What do you mean?
Like, I mean, I'm referring to Needend's comment, because some communities can be toxic, and you don't. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really see any other purpose of extending this meeting. I will be in general chat if people just want to talk about whatever. Again, I know this is a big day. Yeah. Thanks for your message, underscore.
There's a speech request.
Speech request from who?
Vicky.
Oh, okay, sure. Vicky, the invite has been sent. I don't know if it worked. We're getting close to that, Kitty. I'm just gonna let Vicky talk, but I'll be in general anyway. So, in general voice after this. Vicky, I sent the invite. I don't know if that worked for you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I thought it accepted automatically, but I really haven't done this a lot. Anyway, I just wanted to say, this probably could have gone in general, but I requested to speak before that, so before you talked about that. So, regardless of everything else, I just want to say thank you for running the server, especially as long as you did, and for even if people are disappointed, you have kept to all of your promises, and I really do appreciate that. And I know it's tough. It's tough on me. Don't get me wrong, but I know deep down that this is just ultimately the best decision. It's the best of a lot of terrible decisions, but it's the best decision nonetheless for you and the other staff. So I just wanted to say, I know there's still like a year left, but good luck with whatever you decide to do after that. I know after the MRT shuts down. I know you don't have any plans. But I'm sure like going from, I mean, even though you're like a lot older than I am, you've still been running a server for like more, well, it would have been more than 10 years after, by the time you shut it down. But
yeah,
I understand it's a lot, and I know there's like almost certainly nothing I can do. But if there is, then let me know. It's like, but I know that there's probably nothing.
I mean, again, as like, I appreciate the comment, like, yeah, and the offer, Vicky, and yeah, no, like, I'll thank you for being a moderator, because that's, you were you were pretty good as a moderator, in my opinion. Yeah, like, again, as I said, this, as I reiterated this, like, it's possible. There is a possibility my mind could change, but again, I just don't know what would change. I don't know what would change my mind after all what's gone through. I'm open to further discussion about that, or if someone wants to, like, again, like with the wiki and all the downloads and all that, like there's going to be lots of discussion in the coming months and until into the new year about all those sort of things and how that's going to work. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. It does mean a lot. But and of course, it's like in theoretically, like anything can happen within the next year. I'm personally not going to count on it, but because I don't think it's just a good idea. But I'm assuming it does shut down. I still appreciate all the time that you have put in, even if it ends soon.
Yeah.
Even if it's difficult.
Let's not get our hopes up, but just see how things go. So.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I'm not planning on getting my hopes up, but yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Thanks again, Vicky. I mean, we'll talk in general.
Yeah, I'll be in general for at least a little bit.
I guess we should just bring the meeting to a close, unless there's anything urgent that people want to talk about now. There's probably a whole bunch of messages I have to look up and stuff. But yeah. Yeah, this has been a long meeting. I'm sorry about that. Okay.
You want to call it end? It's now, let's see, trying to think of how many hours we ended up going.
6 hours. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you everyone for attending. If you have any questions, you're free to ask me, Chief, or any of the staff. Yeah, let's just try to make this next year cool. And yeah.
Frog, to answer your question, it's because it's hard to moderate it. We'd still have to moderate it even if we shut down the Discord or the Minecraft server. And none of us really had the time or the energy to deal with it.
Just a lot of work to it still, regardless. It's just the problem.
All right. Okay, folks, that's the end of the meeting. Let's move to general. I have to catch up on things. Thanks, everyone.
For our viewers on MBS, thank you for joining us for our live coverage. The special staff meeting is now over. Obviously some pretty significant breaking news at the top of the meeting, and then a lot of lengthy discussion in the middle of the meeting pertaining to how that decision was reached. MBS is going to post another special report with a bit of a meeting recap. It is scheduled for tonight. MBS did schedule that a few hours ago, but frankly it might not come out tonight. But we will release that when we are able to. I won't keep you any longer. This has been the special staff meeting on MBS from MBS News in GSM Town. Kitty Cat 11231.